You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert, and this is episode 418, the Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 4 breakdown. This is, we've got a lot to discuss for an episode that was only about 30 minutes after you cut all the intros and the outros and the credits and all that out. It boils down to about a half of what I think what we've been seeing so far, but still quite a bit that was packed into this and a lot of discourse, of course, as always with this episode, just because it's Star Wars and people have varied opinions about what Star Wars is, and we're going to get into all of that. Hopefully, there'll be some things here too that you've not had a chance to really even think about. So we've done all the legwork for you and taken all the surprises out for you. So we're going to spoil just about everything. And speaking of spoiling everything, Jonesy's with us tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I don't know how to take that. It's spoiling everything.
Well, you're
Either
going to spoil.
a pariah or what?
I'm going to make you give all the spoilers. So that way, if anybody comes at us, because it's only been less than, 48 hours.
Hey, if there's anything I've learned from the NFL, it's important to have a fall guy.
But there's plenty of those. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
how are you this evening?
I am good. I am really anxious to talk about this episode because there were a number of things that I think have happened that we were anticipating, some things that have not or have not yet. And plenty of things to still discuss as far as what's next. Like I've got a lot of there's a lot of open-ended questions here by the end of this episode. So I'm excited. I really want to get into this. So I won't waste any of your time. I know you've got something that you want to share here. First off.
Yeah. So we got an email just before we came on air from Steve, who's a Patreon member of ours and actually just joined Discord. So welcome, Steve. And so his email was, "Hey guys, I heard y'all mention some people don't like when you talk about the comic books. Please don't stop. I enjoy learning about what's happening in them. Plus, I can share what I learned from the Cantina Cast with my 14-year-old that loves comics and graphic novels." So thank you for the feedback. We don't plan on stopping comics, but they aren't as popular all the time. Not everybody gets into it, but there's no stopping us.
No.
But the fun part that I thought was on here was a random thought. Has Anakin as Vader ever tried to connect Qui Gon using the Force? Keep up the great work as always. The podcast gets better with each episode, Steve.
What
do you think about that? That's why I wanted to bring it on. I thought I'd get your thoughts on this one because it is tangentially connected to Kenobi here, and it was kind of an interesting thought I hadn't really rolled around before.
If it's Anakin pre-Darth Vader, pre-Revenge of the Sith, I would say no. Only because it felt like that was something that was kind of a lost way, right? I mean, Yoda had to learn it, and I don't know that it was widely known. Maybe he did hear about it in some way, but I don't know that he would have reached out to him with any looking for any kind of advice or guidance in some way. As Vader, though, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing that leads us to believe that, like from the comics and some of the other stuff there. He seems very super hyper focused on a couple things, right? And primarily finding Skywalker and a number of other things that are, again, not related to Qui Gon. So I mean, as Anakin, I think it would be cool. I don't know if that would be a kind of a cool story. I just don't know that he would have stumbled on it, but I'd be down with it. What do you think?
As Vader, man, that would be really interesting if he was stewing over his hate and then tried to somehow contact Qui Gon. I think the one thing that's interesting though is that I don't know that Anakin has ever really heard Qui Gon, has he? I'm trying to remember back to like the Mortis episodes, and Obi-Wan saw Qui Gon, but I don't think Anakin did he?
No, Anakin did not. I mean, he would have known him just in the short time they were together in episode 1.
Right. So I think while there was definitely I guess it was more Obi-Wan though, was always thinking about the connection between Anakin and Qui Gon about what could have been rather than anything else that Anakin probably was thinking any more of. I think if anything, he may have thought maybe he would be a disappointment to Qui Gon or something like that. There wasn't a lot of wistfulness there, but as Vader, I don't see a reason why he would reach out to him. But again, it might be interesting to see if that was. It'd be interesting to kind of think through, but I'm guessing probably not though. if anything, because Qui Gon's been dead, and Anakin had really no idea you could reach out and touch the other side, so to speak. And so I would presume that Vader does not either. And Vader's too busy out there stalking everybody else.
Yeah. Now, post Revenge of the Sith, or I'm sorry, post Return of the Jedi, I'm sure those guys are kicking back in a Force Ghost bar somewhere, throwing back brewskis, right? I mean, they probably have a good old time talking about stuff.
Probably making fun of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, such a prude. But yeah, I don't know that he would do that any time before then. But yeah, either way, you think about the conversations that Anakin would have with anybody, whether it be Ahsoka, Luke, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? At any point, we always want to hear that. And I think that's why, just to kind of bring it back to Kenobi, we look at these episodes so far, and some of the more powerful moments have been just Vader's presence and hearing him speak and say things. And, it's just, we feel like we had 9 movies where it was all focused on him. Well, 6 anyways, technically, but they're always, it's always good to hear Vader or Anakin speak. And so that's what I think we're all kind of with bated breath and fingers crossed and toes crossed, waiting for that flashback moment where we're going to get some kind of training thing, or, a memory of some sort where they're both communing, which would be awesome.
Right. Yeah. And a really interesting scene, this week's episode between Obi-Wan and Vader that can't wait to dive into a little bit too and see that. But before we get started, a special thank you to our Plus a Little Extra members on Discord, Mike, Borda, and Kathy. Appreciate it. For those that might not be aware, we have a Patreon at cantinacast.com/Patreon. So if you'd like to donate to the show, everything that you give, spend puts right back into the show, helps cover costs and all of that, as well as help the channel grow and all of that good stuff. And for folks who do our Plus a Little Extra tier or above, you get a special thank you on the air and a special thank you in the credits as well. And anything new that we are kicking around and thinking about doing, those would be the first folks that we reach out to and see what they think and kind of put it past them. So again, thank you to those Patreon subscribers, as well as all of our Patreon subscribers. We do really appreciate all of your support.
Hey, and also before we go, we've got to show this. Did you check your mail to get this one yet?
No, I didn't make it down in the mailbox, but I do have it sitting there for me.
So this came in today. I think I posted on Twitter. Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher has officially come out. This is the ARCs. It is a very healthy book. It's very thick. That's
a great way of putting it. Yeah,
healthy. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think what he say there was like 600 pages originally in his manuscript before it got whittled down to what we got now.
Right.
I think this sucker came in at 480 something. Sorry, 468.
Wow.
Is the final page on that one. So nearly a 500-page Star Wars novel. So,
and it just doesn't feel like it though.
No, it's a quick read, and we still can't really say a whole lot. I'll just say I'm very excited to talk about this book. How about that? So get that when it comes out, June 28th.
Yeah, but the good news is the embargo was pulled forward, so we'll be able to talk about it as early as next week. And I think you're planning on doing a little spoiler-free review of it, huh?
Yeah, the 14th is when we can do that. Is when we can actually start talking about the book. So we'll do something initially, and then we'll come back and do something a little bit longer, broader in terms of review and dissection. Exciting.
An hour or a minute for every page.
There you go. That's how we do things here. At least a minute per page.
That's right. Minimum.
Okay, well, we're going to get into part 4, and this is going to be a lot of spoilers. So I know this is pretty quick for us, 2-day turnaround sometimes. So if you've not had a chance to watch the episode, this is your warning, all that cliche stuff. But yeah, we're going to break down every little thing and hopefully turn over some things that maybe you didn't catch or you missed or weren't even thinking about. Because I've seen this episode now officially 4 times, and every time I've added to the notes. I keep adding to the show notes because there's like, oh crap, we got to talk about this, or I didn't think about that, or I interpreted a line a little bit differently. It did feel like, let's go. I'll turn it over to you first. So give me your initial thoughts. What were you, I guess, now that you've seen it a couple times, what do you think?
I think this might actually be, from start to finish, kind of overall my favorite episode so far, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And I know that's a bit of I won't call that a hot take at all, but maybe a bit inconsistent with what a lot of people might think for the part 3, which I love part 3.
Yeah. Especially
for all the Vader stuff that we got. But I mean, this one had kind of a little bit of everything. It was kind of intense. I thought that Leia was so expressive, and I will eventually learn her name and actually remember it it's Vivian something, right?
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names, so it's nothing against a kid or anything like that. I'm just awful with names. But I liked her performance, and I thought she was really good. I liked some of the expression that Reba had. You know, the way that Vader comes charging in. I mean, sure, there was a couple of scenes of silliness, but seeing Obi-Wan start to return to form was really, really cool. And especially seeing kind of where he ended up last part and into this one, to see him finally, when he does his little twirl, I couldn't help but just get excited about it. It just a return to the prequel, confidence of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we've really seen this shift in the character. And I think this is where things will really start to pick up and really be all the more entertaining, but really intense though. And a bit of an unexpected surprise in the secured area of the facility. And so I ate it up every time. This is one of the one episode that I've been able to watch and not feel the necessity to kind of scroll through a couple of things just to get to the parts where a lot of this episode really felt like it was important and there were really things to it, even though there were some cliche things in there too. But I really enjoyed this one. How about you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I liked it with subsequent viewings more than I did the previous viewing. I still stand by. You had asked me the morning after whether or not what my
To rank
ranking
them,
was,
yeah.
and I had said that 3 was still my favorite so far, followed by excuse me, this one, and then 1 and 2, and I could probably go back and forth, but I'd say 2 then 1. But I still stand by that. I still think this is still my second favorite episode, just because we got the Vader fight, and I know that sounds really testosterone filled, but I just enjoyed that part of it
Well,
really.
something we've been waiting forever to
Yeah,
get.
exactly. Being able to see that after 40 something years was just too cool.
Right.
But yeah, the pacing. Well, let me just talk about that. The pacing seemed snappier in this one than the first 3, and I don't know whether that's psychosomatic or I was just in my head or what, but it did feel a little bit faster. And for an episode again that's only 32 minutes, I think, or maybe 30 after you cut all the
Yeah.
credits out. It did feel like there was still a lot. They were just moving right along very quickly through all of this, which I actually enjoyed. I think that's good feedback. It's not negative in any way.
Right.
I did enjoy as much as I posted something today. Who's it? Ash sent me a link to a Yahoo reviewer that said that we did the tired old, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but the tired old rescue mission in Star Wars once again, right? That we'd seen this so many times, and we've seen it in Mando and blah blah blah. And then I'm starting thinking that's what Star Wars is. Like, that is a staple of Star Wars. We've had it in just in every movie. You could argue that if it's not in your face overtly there that there's a rescue mission, then you could probably infuse a rescue mission of some sort, right? Kind of indirectly. But
Well,
rescue missions,
in the first 6, it's obvious. There's literally a very clear rescue mission in every single one of them.
right?
Yeah.
And then you get in. Don't even start on Clone Wars, Rebels. I mean, that's just what Star Wars is. And if you don't like it, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we're gonna say. Guess what? Spoiler alert! I'm gonna go out on a limb and say we're gonna continue to have rescue missions in Star Wars because that's what we do, right?
Well, it's how you get your characters out and about too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you pull them out of their comfort zone, and I mean, it's the whole hero's journey. And so, if we're going to complain about that, then we have to complain. Well, we just relied too much on Joseph Campbell, and I know people have definitely had that criticism in the past, but it works, and people like it, and you can do a lot with it. So,
right,
as long as you do it well, then it can work.
Yeah. If you really are not into Star Wars rescue missions, I'm sure someone has an amazing, like, Imperial accounts payable story that's just ready for you. And
wasn't that in certain points of view? Certain point of view.
Yeah, those stories right there. If you want diverse Star Wars storytelling, go take a look at those stories.
Right.
But no, seriously, I mean, it is what we do. So from that perspective, we got our second rescue mission in only 4 episodes. Yeah, which was interesting and fun to watch. I did like with you. I enjoyed Kenobi coming around. Right, it seemed like he was progressively getting stronger and more comfortable. Still not there like we would expect him to be. He's not in his Clone War days, right? In the living the great years again. But we did see some improvements, so I think that bodes well. It kind of debunks my theory of hoping for an 80s montage with Survivor in the background, but you never know. We could still you may need that little oomph to get over the hump,
right.
if you will. So
yeah,
It could still happen. I'm still banking on that 80s montage. But yeah, it does look like he's coming around, getting better there. So all of that was good. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat this whole episode, honestly.
It was really
It was
intense.
pretty intense. At one point when I was watching it the very first night, I didn't realize that I was like gripping my hand really tightly.
They start going numb.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't normally get like that, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it was just because I was tired or it was a little late or it was just this episode, but I was into it. I really was.
Which scene was it? Was it the Leia about to be tortured scene?
It was when they were walking. No, it was when they were walking out in the Little Rascals trench coat scene. Which we'll come back to. I mean, there's feedback here, there's criticism and all that, but it's again, did it change anything for me? No. I thought it was actually funny. I was laughing that that's what they were doing and they got away with it because, I mean, how? Well, I'll save it. I probably have a different perspective of that, but so yeah, I think that was pretty much all I had. I did enjoy the episode quite a bit though, and I don't understand why, other than it's just normal Star Wars talk for a lot of people out there, why this particular episode is being labeled as filler or not going anywhere.
I don't understand that at all. Yeah,
it's not. I mean, if people are going, this is all about expectations once again, right? If people are coming into the series and expecting Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi to go, mano a mano sabers dueling for 6 episodes, 40 minutes each episode, an hour each episode, guess what? Sorry, that's not what's happening here. And this is a TV series, right? It's not a movie. With a movie, they cut so many things out to compact it down into 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever that is.
right.
You have the ability to tell these very long stories. And I know some people feel shorted, like, oh, we've only got 6 episodes and we waited this long. They're wasting time and we could have spent. True, but this isn't a movie. It's a TV series. You watch any TV series and you're going to have these type of episodes that people call filler, which are just more character building. It's more background. We got so much from Reba in just those little comments that she was saying that we can start piecing together her background. And if you don't like Reba, then I get it. You're probably looking at this episode going, man, that really sucked. But there's so many things that were said, and we're going to get into a lot of these that are just great for us that really like to know everything, right? We gotta know everything. We have to see every angle, hear every perspective, and I don't know, there was a lot here. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right, well,
let's dig into it then.
Yeah, let's break this one open. Okay, so I want to quickly talk because the Star Wars title sequences are always fun. I don't remember if this has been done with this one or not, but
they keep updating. Yeah, I noticed it last episode as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one definitely had some new ones, yeah.
But this one we got Lola, Ned B's in there, and we got the Gonk.
I laughed so hard at that. It was all I could do. It was all I could do not to text you. Like, oh my God, did you see the Gonk drawing?
At first, I didn't know what it was. I was like, what in the world? And then I rewound it just for that, and I was like, oh, that's funny that they put that in there. So that's a nice little Easter egg. I like that they do that. It's different.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so we get into the aftermath of the duel. And first off, this was a very intense scene. Like, whoa, it really kind of hits you in the face because of just that. The parallels of showing Obi-Wan Kenobi burned in the back of the tank, healing. I love the way that she kind of, was coming down, this is Chow coming down with the camera and showing Vader's arm and Kenobi's arm. And then, Vader's arm just kind of suddenly stops, but we know why that happened. But just that parallel of them, and then it felt like they were talking, like they were connected in some way because they were having these visceral physical reactions, with each other. And I wonder if that is part of that connection that we talked about, where he said, what was it? I can't remember. It was episode 2 or 3 at the very end. He said something, and that's when woke up Vader, right? And so we had theorized that there was some level of connection that was established there. But what did you think about the back to tank sync, and how awesome is back though? I mean, we kind of knew this was going to have to be the case since he was that burnt bad.
Well, we gotta get the important stuff out of the way first, as usual. He didn't have a man diaper on in the back to tank. He just had regular old cargo shorts, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So go score one for Obi-Wan on the fashion front. So nicely done, Lucasfilm. I was really curious about this, of whether or not they were, was Vader doing something to reach out to Obi-Wan that was, creating this? Because Obi-Wan was effectively, unconscious or having a subconscious reaction to something going on, either kind of a PTSD moment or just overactive brain, everything just trying to process all of that. Or Vader was actually reaching out and influencing and making Obi-Wan kind of recall some of this stuff. And while we know that reaching out across the entire galaxy can be very difficult, making an impression and giving feelings like that aren't necessarily out of the realm of possibility. And but I liked that. I was a little curious about Vader's reactions, though. That part I was a little confused by of what would be causing Vader to have all of these really severe, sharp, motions as he's in the tank, and they're having this. I don't know if it's a conversation or just more of a flash show in their heads, of a slideshow basically of everything that was happened as they go through it. But I mean, we have to remember that just because Obi-Wan's beat up doesn't mean that Vader is not having something of a similar type of experience and reaction to the shock that Obi-Wan might be feeling as well, because 10 years have gone by, but with Anakin not being able to confront his former master, and then here he is finally, he had him so close, he was finally starting to enact the very opening phrases of his revenge on him, of what he was going to put him through in the suffering, and to have that taken away from him almost immediately, it leaves a bitter taste. And just what else would he have been, going through? It's like one of those things where you feel like you're so close and you just can't quite reach it, and then but you get ripped away from it, and you're like, I'm never going to get it again.
Yeah,
And so I'm wondering if Vader's got this feeling that I don't know, like I don't know if I'm going to get that opportunity again, because it's been 10 years this long, so
you mean
am I
like
going to get
the anxiety of knowing that may have been his only chance?
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
Mm. That's one theory. I think the way
I
it
like
was.
who said that.
Well, no, I mean, there's tons of theories here.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, it could just be a simple connection. They can feel each other's presence, and for whatever reason, it's disturbing for both of them. Maybe they're locked in this thing and they can't separate themselves, or they're trying to separate. We know that when you're in a bacta tank, right, you get all these kind of memories and all that. That's now canon. We saw it in Book of Boba Fett a number of times. So maybe in some other, level of consciousness, they're battling still in some way. But the other theory that I had was around Vader reacting to what Obi-Wan was going through. And I say that because it does feel like when you look at Obi-Wan, he almost looks like he's scared, like there's fear in him, right? And Vader seems to be feeding off of that. Like he's reacting to the fear. So it cuts from one, then it goes to the other. You see Obi-Wan jerk, and then Vader feels it. It's almost like it's a kind of a push and pull kind of thing. But either way, I think there is definitely some level of connection there. Otherwise, they're just both, having these lucid dreams, and they want to show them they're both kind of still reeling from that fight, and they're not really connected in some way. My gut tells me they probably are connected in much more than that. But
yeah, I mean, and I tend to agree, because we've seen Vader in the bacta before, and we've seen him perfectly still.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically meditating or whatever it is that he does when he's just, kind of resting state. But now he's got all of these things firing in his brain too. And it wouldn't surprise me if, there was some connection across the stars that's, causing some of these reactions. I'm just curious, who is one causing it versus the other, or is it just that electricity in and of itself and the connection between them historically is what's they're reacting to individually, but from a shared connection of sorts. So it's kind of an interesting debate there about what it might be.
I like there was a number of things that happened in this episode, so I'm going to call them out, that were just kind of throwbacks, or maybe they were nods to other Star Wars movies and quotes and stuff. But him coming out of the tank and going, "Where's Leia?" was like right in your face. Where's Rey? Right, from Finn in The Last Jedi. Which
there's a lot of Force Awakens type of stuff in this
exactly.
Stuff, so,
There was a lot of quotes, and I think I got most of them in here. But the one thing that's not clear to me, because we know bacta works pretty quickly. We saw that with Mandalorian. I mean, he gave him that little spray, and he was up and running in just a few minutes, right there, maybe hours. I don't know how much time has passed here. I didn't really get a sense of that, and not that I don't think it plays into this really much for me personally. But I did have questions around how much time had passed with him in the bacta tank, how much time had passed with Leia being held by Reba. For me, it's depending on your perspective and depending on how you're looking at it, it could be anything from 5 to 8 hours to maybe a day or two. I don't have a good sense of that, and I got questions about what was happening. If it was longer than 8 hours or 10 hours, what was going on with Leia, because there was moments, and I don't want to jump ahead, but there were moments in there where she was just in a room,
Right.
and in that interrogation room, was she's in there, was she in there the whole time? Did they just move her into that, and we never got to see that off screen? Again, nothing that really is important, but I didn't really get a good sense of how much time had passed from the battle until when they decide, or Kenobi's fit to go back and try to rescue her a second time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because it kind of feels like it's as little as just a few hours, like you said. And I don't think this could definitely be more than a day.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of make decisions pretty quick though too. But yeah, how much time did it take to get back, and then how much time was Obi-Wan actually in the bacta tank? And again, he's not completely healed, so we're assuming he wasn't able to stay in there for an extended period of time. But we don't really have a good idea of that with Luke in Empire Strikes Back though either, right?
Yeah.
So we don't really know how. I mean, he had really severe injuries, but not really clear how long he was in there. Of course, not really the same scenario here, but very unclear. Star Wars and timelines, I think. But what it worked a little bit better here than when we've had some criticisms in the past about that lack of time perception, about how much time has passed. And I think we had this with Book of Boba Fett too, right? It was really difficult to understand how much time was going by as we came between these dream sequences and those types of things. But with this one, it kind of worked as they kind of went back and forth. You get a better idea of that time passing and that there are things happen. So it's kind of interesting how really not a lot of difference with how the different shows have done it, but just the perception from editing and pacing can really make a big difference on how we perceive time going by, to where it feels like it's a more natural period of time, even though it was still relatively quickly or a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about, so the way this episode is laid out too. This is where I felt like the tension was really great, and why I felt like I was on the edge of my seat. Deborah Chow keeps cutting back and forth.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. In the entire episode. And it's like, and she does it really well. Like it didn't, sometimes it can feel choppy and you don't hold on a scene long enough, or you hold too long on some scenes. This didn't feel like that at all. Like it felt really natural, and it was good for the episode and what she was trying to do. So, but for the sake of our discussion, so that we're not going back and forth between these little mini clips, I kind of laid out the Leia and Reba relation, that whole interrogation thing, all the way up into the point where it kind of gets short. The interrogation right before she is about to do the interrogation and she's interrupted. So let's talk about that, and then we'll come back to everything that happens on Jabin with Rogan and all that. And then at the end of that, we'll kind of bring those two together with the rescue mission, if you will. So
sure.
Let's start with Leia and Reba. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Everything from, Reba calling Leia out as a Jedi sympathizer.
She's 10. Come on.
Well, yeah, she is only 10, but yeah, it's true. She says the Empire doesn't take kindly to Jedi sympathizers, right? And all this kind of keeps hitting on this idea of the path and the network, which I think this episode was kind of eye-opening. I don't know if it was just obtuse on my part for not really kind of seeing what the path was, truly, but I don't think I really understood just how big it is. Like, it feels now that the path really is a lot of people that are force sensitive, and not just a small handful of people, but it's enough that these guys are really trying to shut that down. And it makes sense. I mean, it all makes sense, but it just, because this was introduced in this, and we didn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you're closer to the comics on this part, but I don't remember them ever discussing the path in any of the comics, or the Inquisitors bringing it up. I mean, it's kind of talked about indirectly, but as a proper noun, and, knowing just how many people are kind of coming through this system, this feels like this is something that's been underground, hidden from them for so long, and this is our first introduction to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. There's not ever been anything a proper noun, the path or the way or anything like that, except within the context of these newer shows that we've got. And so that's but I think something of why maybe we have this perception, though, or why it's been difficult to understand how big this truly is. We've always perceived this and viewed this through the eyes of a rebellion, and how they've always been underground, and how they've taken all these blows and these hits on the chin, and then they get fragmented, or they get dwindled down, and then they are able to rebuild and things like that. So we always presume that was all happening in the background, and up to this point, at this stage in the rebellion, it's a disorganized mess still, right? We're not to the point where we are in Rogue One, which is still several years away, to where they finally decide to get organized and actually form an actual front and a formal, kind of a formal military. Even though they've all pledged it, they've not really had to do it as a cohesive unit. And I think that's where this is really interesting, because this does, like you were saying, this does feel like an actual network, something that's been established, something that's working, something that has, people in the right places to get information, and they've got tactics, and they've got, things that they can call on. So it does feel very different. I think it's just because it's within that context. We're always viewing it from the, this idea of the rebellion and how it was formed, because we have so much material on it. But this one's shaping up to be much more mature at a much earlier stage. But again, it seems to be more directly associated with Force sensitive folks.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to that. There's when we get to Rogan, there's some more talking points, I think, in there around the beginnings, the infancy here of what will become the Rebel Alliance, and just kind of how that's all laid out. Because we are still about, I think technically, I don't know, it's in Rebels where the Rebel Alliance is officially formed. There's that episode, remember, where Mon Mothra's on the ship and she declares it and all that. There's that episode. I think we're at least 6 or 7,
I think that's 6 or 7. Yeah.
Away for that. And then we've got the Rogue One, which was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years away. But I think we are starting to see, like the
Rogue One was
stuff.
Well, Rogue One was basically right there,
right before it. Yeah, so even further out. But the other point is we're starting to see. I was trying to think of Infus Nest. That's why I wore this solo shirt today, by the way. And so the inklings there as well. All of this is just kind of starting to kind of come together. But again, more on that when we get to the Rogan part. But we talked about this in the last episode about why wouldn't Vader just go ahead and call out Bail Organa, and for siding with the Jedi or being a Jedi sympathizer. And
that question really comes a lot stronger in this episode, huh?
Yeah, because especially at the very end, which I don't know, it kind of, to me, it feels like they painted themselves in a corner. But I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, see if they can get themselves out of this. But there's, she declares, I'm the child of a senator. I'm protected is the word that she uses. And so that kind of hits directly on what we were talking about in the last episode, where for whatever reason, yes, I think Vader or Palpatine could go in and just start wiping out the senators, but he's not really trying to do that right now. And so, although I think it's a false sense of protection, I think if they really wanted to, they would just go out and wipe out these people. I think it does speak to the fact that they are at least trying to play within some kind of rules, or there's probably some guardrails there right now, at least, where they're trying to make peace with these high profile, very powerful individuals such as senators and leaders of nations, because they need those resources and they need those allies. And yeah, they could rule with an iron fist, but when you can make amends, or when you can make friendships and not have to deal with all that, sometimes that is a better route, even if you are the Dark Lord of the Force or the Empire.
Well, and again, I'm kind of a little bit in a different perspective on that one, where I don't know that Palpatine sees an advantage, he would go to that route. But I don't know that with someone like Bail Organa, he's not going to rein that one in. They're not going to be political allies or on the same side of the fence, really, probably on anything, right? And so I think some of it's about, though, of Vader and the Inquisitors staying out of the Emperor's lane, and say anything politically motivated is the Emperor's arena. It is not ours unless we're given a job to go take care of that. We've learned our lesson from this already. We're not going to do this again, because we have been told, do not screw this up from the political arena. You are enforcers, basically. You're the muscle. You will do as you're told. Vader, it's your job to make sure that they follow through with that too. And by the way, you're on notice too. They're Vadery. So anyway, I think from that respect, I think Palpatine probably pays attention, but he might not care, and he might not think that there's a lot of things capable at this point. A little bit difficult. We don't really have a whole lot in this kind of 10-year range of saying, where does Palpatine, or where's the Rebel Alliance, and where is Palpatine's perspective on any kind of dissent in the Empire. And so the idea that we've been given, though, is that it's not a flare yet, and it might even not really even truly be a bit of a spark yet.
Mm-hmm. And
so it might not be on the radar necessarily to where they think that they've got to actually pay attention to it, because we know for a long time they just ignored it.
Yeah.
But again, there's when it comes to the Jedi, though, I think that's where things get messy, though, because, and I think you're right when you said they might be painting themselves into a bit of a corner, I think in a couple of different ways now. And I think this is exactly what this is that Bail Organa hired a Jedi or contacted a Jedi to go and save his daughter. And that Jedi responded. So he knew where he was. That's aiding and abetting a known criminal, right? And then he actually did it. So, I mean, why? I mean, she's a kid. So, I mean, that's kind of one excuse for some of this stuff. But, you know, why would they not pursue Bail Organa for this when now they've got very clear evidence that, you know, this is a thing? And I think at this point, you've almost got to bring Bail Organa and kind of answer that question, don't you?
I have an answer to that, but I'm going to
Okay.
save it because it's at the very end. When we
I'm
get to
going to forget the answer then.
No, I've got it in my notes here.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, no, I've got it to talk about. So because I spent a lot of time in the last 2 days thinking about this. Now it's starting to really not necessarily bother me, but it's starting to consume me. As crazy as that may sound. Okay, let's. There's that line of "Nobody's coming for you" that was kind of echoed by Flea in that second episode. He's like, "Nobody's coming for you." That was my Flea impression. Thank you. And
That was quite good, actually.
Thank you. So we saw that twice. Reba, we learned that she knows about the network and she knows about the past. We hear that they've knocked out 2 safe houses already. So it sounds like, yeah, they're making some progress there. And she's now using the motive behind Leia's abduction has changed just slightly, right? First,
Right.
it was to pull out Kenobi, and that was done. Objective, they checked the box. Although Kenobi got away, they still got him out. Now they have her, and now they're using her to smoke out the paths and the network, and they want to, mine her for information, almost literally about what she could know because because Reva ran into that safe house and saw the Jedi symbol on there. That's changed the objective here just slightly, but I think it's still both, right? I think it's still we want Kenobi, and now we know that you guys are probably harboring information about the network, and so therefore, we're going to use her and Kenobi to get all of this
Right.
together. But let's talk about the mind probe too, because this is typical Leia, right? She's been, or Rey Skywalker, whoever, but she's very resistant to the mind probe. And Vader makes that comment. I know there's been some discussion. I saw it on Reddit. Some people were talking about whether that was kind of alluding to Vader knowing that she's been through this before and she's not going to give up any information. Maybe, maybe not. I would imagine if he's got some kind of history there and he knows, because he's like, I told you. So it sounds like, yeah, he did it before. Maybe this is the instance. Maybe it's later on. We really don't know for sure. What did you think? Do you think that the direct callback or direct tie-in to that comment he makes in A New Hope?
No, but I think it was a nice call back to it. Because if you remember in A New Hope, I think the actual line is that her resistance to the mind probe is considerable, right? Or impressive, something like that. And so I think that was very much a unexpected event for Vader, that he was surprised that she was able to resist it, for whatever reason. And so, and again, that was a droid too, right? So that was pumping chemicals into you and products in order to try to get you to talk and loosen up, right? So a little bit different than just a mind probe from the Force, I think. And again, it's very unclear, and it seems unlikely that Reva will share what the event have happened in this interrogation with Vader, because Vader doesn't really give a lot of opportunity for discussion, right? I mean, he marches in and starts force choking people. Right. And if you're able to squeak something out, maybe you'll get a word in to try to dial that back a little bit. But while I think it was a nice call back to all of that, I don't think there's any direct connection between those two events.
Okay. No, I think I'm with you on that one, to be honest. The other thing that I want to highlight is when she makes that comment about Leia, as she says, "Is this a staring contest?" I couldn't help but think of who talks first with Kylo Ren. And Poe at the very beginning of Force Awakens. I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, it was great though. If you watch Leia, she actually does lean in just a little bit like Rey does, right? Mm-hmm. Which I thought was really great. You can actually see her pushing back on her face and also with her body language too.
Yeah,
to the point she can make a smart ass remark. Yeah.
Do you think she got anything? This is off script. Sorry, but I've been struggling. I was going to put this in the notes, and I decided not to, and now I'm going to talk about it.
Let's just do it, man. Throw it on the table.
Throw it on the table, right? But I'm struggling to think whether or not, or I guess I'm wondering whether or not she was able to get anything Because like you said, she doesn't have to tell Vader that she did this. But if she came across other information, maybe she wasn't able to get information on the path because Leia was blocking her from that, but she uncovers other information. And here's where I've been thinking about this. Remember, I was trying to tell you, like, how do I get? I want to get. I want to force Reva back to Tatooine just to make that line stick about next time Owen, right?
Right.
And I'm trying to think, like, so what if there was something in there with the twins, or she was able to see that far back? But that's kind of I'm just joking halfway on that. But do you
Right.
think there's anything else that she may have seen, or do you think that was a solid iron curtain that went up and she got nothing out of her?
I think some of it I go back to is a little more practical of what does Leia know aside from the path? What else does she really know that it would be useful for the Inquisitors? I mean, I think that's maybe the more obvious question is, what does she know? And it doesn't seem like they really include her in a lot of political discussions or anything like that on Alderaan. And while she's training to be going through the Senate and all of that, again, it seems like she's on more or less the straight and narrow path rather than being raised to be a rebel from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think back about what she knows, I think it's actually pretty well limited. And so I don't know that there's a lot to go and do. And we haven't seen where maybe Kylo Ren, well, we don't know if Kylo Ren was lying or not, but Kylo Ren said that he was able to see Rey's parents and get that kind of information, right? But we don't really know if that was 100% true. Certainly it didn't seem like it at all. But in this case, is Reva strong enough to be able to do anything to that extent? Or is that even possible by trying to read minds? How much is it? We know the Inquisitors aren't as strong as like a Vader or someone, or maybe even like a Kylo Ren. So to me, it doesn't make sense that she would even have the ability to extract more than maybe what was right there kind of in the surface, or more the, what you can actively think of and start to pull from the subconscious, if you will, like we would see, like what we heard from Luke when, or from Leia rather, when she's remembering her mother and then that kind of thing back in Return of the Jedi.
So, not to spoil anything,
So,
and I
no.
promise. Okay, so no. Great. Next question. Not to spoil anything, but there may be a book coming out. I'm not going to say which book, but there could be a book coming out very soon that has a lot of information about whether or not Kylo Ren was telling the truth about her parents. Definitive information.
I guess I should finish reading said book.
I don't know. Maybe. We'll see, though. It's just a hunch I have. Okay.
Just a hunch, huh?
Just a hunch. All right. So in this interrogation, we get a lot of information around Reva, and she rattles off a number of things here. She says the braver you seem, the more afraid you are.
Yeah.
I hear that and I think Jedi, right? The Jedi are supposed to be brave, but did they, and kind of like we were theorizing, did one of them have a moment of fear, or did fear creep in to the point where they, went from selfless to selfish and saved their own tail and left Reva and others to be, defend for themselves at some point?
Right.
There's
think about Kanan as well. What Kanan went through when Order 66 happened, and some of his recollections from Rebels too about what happened afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You start to think that, like, I know I should be brave, but there's just so far a young person can bring themselves to actually be brave before you start making concessions.
Yeah. Yep. She says that she owned a droid at some point.
Yeah, that's curious.
I don't know that we'll get anything on that. I mean, we don't have to. Like, I don't think we need to. I think it's really, right now at least, it just, there's a possession there. Like, she felt like she had something that belonged to her, and that was taken away as well, right?
Yeah, and it's unclear if that was her family or if that was her Jedi family too, right?
Yeah, exactly. We don't know which one it was.
Yeah, because I don't really know of any Jedi that had actual dedicated droids that weren't part of their ship.
Yeah,
or anything like that. R2 was a pretty exceptional case, I think.
Mm-hmm. And R4. Awful.
Well, but he was part of the ship.
Oh, I know. I was just making a joke.
Awful.
He died. Spoiler alerts.
Didn't see a body.
She says that she was alone for some time. Reva was alone for an extended period of time. She tells her once again, they're not coming for you. She goes, these people, they'll leave you to die. Yeah. These people meaning the Jedi again?
Kind of felt like that, didn't it?
Yeah. There's I mean, I don't know who else it would be other than, I don't think she's speaking about there's like the rebels or the people that are helping the Jedi. I don't think
Yeah,
that's
any
the
kind
case.
of
I think,
resistance. Yeah, because
yeah,
at
I
that
think,
time it would have been. Well, I mean, then again, so let's just kind of think there just a touch more. Then, if she was trying to find refuge somewhere, and there was really anti-Jedi sentiment across the galaxy, then it was very possible that the everyday people also could betray you to where you can't trust them either. And maybe she has some experience there of just being, like the Grand Inquisitor called her, basically a gutter rat, right?
Yep.
And so it might not just be the Jedi, it might just be people. And it just might be these seemingly everyday good people,
Right.
but they still fear you or they fear something. And so they want to turn you in. And basically it goes back to you just really can't trust anyone but yourself.
Mm-hmm. She's Stephanie said she could have been lying, and I'm assuming she's talking about Reba because
Yeah.
right, and that's a good point. She could have been doing that just to kind of you know connect with her and get her to give information out or whatever.
Some of it
Uh,
sounded really genuine though, didn't it?
yeah, no, it did. I mean, she could be a very good liar too, but I think it's probably more interesting for her to be talking to Leia of all people, right? Because if you think about it, I mean, she was taken away from her family, and now you've got Leia who's kind of going through the same thing. I don't know that she's looking at Leia as, oh, this could have been me or anything like that, but who does she confide in right now, right? Who does she share these things with? It's nobody on the dang Inquisitor team,
Right.
right? We don't know that she has anybody else that she speaks to. So
I mean,
here's
she's
this innocent child that
alienated
made
herself from everyone, right? I mean, she
right.
is public enemy number one within her own circle.
Hmm.
She's got a target on her from Vader. What
Yeah,
else? Where do you turn for any kind of solace?
you did this to yourself, Anakin. But she could be looking at Leia and going, "Well, she's 10. I'm gonna kill her. She probably will die. She's not gonna survive the interrogation if she doesn't give me the information. So what do I got to lose?" Kind of thing.
Right.
Or if you again, depending on how much time passed, I don't remember if she I think she has Lola at this point, but and maybe it's off camera or whatever. Does she plant some kind of device in there at some point
I
that
could
takes
not
over?
find where she would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, based on the way it's edited and the way it was also edited, not to jump ahead, but since we're talking about it, Lola looks like she was programmed of some sort, right? The eyes were kind of red. So it's not like they implanted a little device that's beeping or something. It looks like she was programmed to become the actual tracking device of some sort.
Right.
But I guess we'll figure that out. So in my opinion, I think it happened off camera. At some point, they had her bag. They put that in there and they brought it in and knew that it was in there, but let Leia kind of feel and think that it was they hadn't seen it or whatever, but all right. This is all, Leia is faking tears. I thought she did. What's her name? What's the character's name? Blair.
Yeah, Vivian Blair.
Vivian
Is that right?
Blair. Yep. I thought she did a really good job. I
I
think she
thought she
did
was
an awesome job.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially faking the tears and like she just cuts it off and gets really pissed off and when
That was great.
she calls her out and she's like, "Well, I need to tell my dad." Like, all right, we're done here. But I did credit to Reba too. Like she did not buy any of it. Like she saw right through her on all of that because she's, you can't BS a BSer, right? So
Well, she doesn't, and to be fair, Reva doesn't believe anything anybody says to her anyway. I
yeah,
mean, because she has the same response to Tala either.
mhm,
Oh, are you lying to me? She's just
yeah,
suspicious of everybody,
mhm,
which she's an inquisitor. It's kind of in the title.
right. No one expects the Inquisition, and so this is all cut short. And just prior to her being taken to the interrogation room and actually being interrogated with the machines and all that. Um, well, we'll come back to it. I have a question around how Kenobi hear the sounds, but more on that later. All right. So let's flip back to Jabim and pick up where we meet Rogan. So played by O'Shea Jackson Jr. I was really hoping he was going to be Quinlan Voss, as was everybody on the internet. I
Right.
can't tell you how many people have posted videos and theories and all. I mean, someone came with a whole backstory of how Quinlan Voss had survived and worked it right into this, and all for naught. And it was all because it was all based around O'Shea Jackson Jr. as being Quinlan Voss. Because if you do look at him, like I said, if they would have shaved his beard a little bit and put some dreads on him, he
He
would have
could,
probably have thinned up a little bit because he's kind of a beefy guy. And Quinlan was beefy, but he was kind of a lengthy kind of character looking.
yeah,
At least that was drawn in Clone Wars. But otherwise, I thought he would have passed as a Quinlan Voss. I thought he could easily pass.
yeah, he could have. Yeah, I agree.
But instead, we got Rogan, and that's okay. Um, So Rogan, he's working. What do we know about him? He's working through as part of the path and saving all these people, all these force sensitive. He seems to be kind of coordinating a lot of this effort.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a humanitarian effort of some sort. I don't know where they're getting their funding or any of that stuff. I mean, that's kind of interesting to me. I'd like to know. But he calls Kenobi
but at the same
general.
time, yeah. But at the same time, we do see their equipment is pretty dilapidated, though, too, right? So we know that they're scrapping together things from wherever. So we know they're not well funded.
No, not at all. I mean, we'll get to the T-47s in a minute because I'm gonna bring up more 1987 Star Wars role playing material. But
he calls him General. Yeah, that was shocking, right?
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
because,
I thought it was too.
Someone remembers them. Like someone remembers that's Kenobi. He's a general. I'm going to acknowledge him by his rank.
But why? I guess, but why? Because I mean, how old is Rogan? Rogan doesn't seem quite old enough to have fought in the Clone Wars.
He would have been pretty young. He would have been like 10. Like I'm figuring like a Padawan age, right? 10
right,
years
but
old,
and again, what would he have been? Right, because they had a clone army. They did have non-clone officers in some way, but he would be too young for that. So I mean, he could have been a cadet, or something around, something in that area. But it was really interesting to call him General, though. I liked it. I thought it was really cool because, I mean, while Obi-Wan didn't really react much to it, I think he
was going to. Sorry.
I thought he would too. Yeah. I was a little disappointed we didn't get at least just a kind of an eye blink or something. But I think it did resonate with him that all of a sudden he's back in the fight. But what was ironic about it was that he doesn't want to be part of that fight, right? Or this fight, but, and they're not soldiers, but here you are calling a general, and he's basically trying to conscript soldiers. So it was a bit, the irony was a bit amusing in that regard.
Well, and one of the themes here is just that I wouldn't call it a trope, but we've seen this time and time again in Star Wars and in other movies as well. When there's a war, sometimes the war comes to your doorstep and you have no choice but to get pulled into it. And this is exactly what was going on here. He was resistant to joining, but by the end of it, I think the bed's been laid. I think he realizes, and I think we're going to see that when we theorize about what comes next. He's in this he's a lifer now, right? Whether he wants to be it or not, he's crossed the line and he made that commitment.
Well, and he had to be really called out, and you had to get that backstory from him in order to finally understand that, because he had a pretty clear line. We're just trying to help people. We are not trying to fight.
Yeah,
and we're not trying to do this. But until Obi-Wan makes it very clear, though, that, like you just said, basically it's going to find you. If you do this, you're already involved. I mean, you are already what you say you don't want to be. Yeah. You just don't know it yet, or you've just not accepted that to yourself yet. And that he would turn his back on an individual, although he doesn't know that Leia is force sensitive. But given his past, I mean, he had to basically have that kind of pulled out of him with his passed away wife. That that this was something that he's already done before. That's the whole reason why he was involved here.
Yep.
And that he does understand what the Empire can do, and he knows that they're not above doing it to a little girl or to a child in general, right?
Yep.
And clearly they're okay with doing it to a child, because I mean, even though Reba seemed to be hesitating a bit, and I think I kind of question whether she actually wanted to do it, we do see that they're fully capable and they will follow through. Anyway, didn't mean to jump.
No.
But we can jump back to Rogan here.
Well, we're gonna get into him, but so I was gonna say where we discussed this the most was during the Bad Batch, right? Of post, Order 66 and the Galactic Empire now being in power, and all this was just kind of changing the landscape of the galaxy in a lot of different ways, and many people were getting pulled into the war for a lot of reasons.
Well, even guys like Cut and some of those as well, right?
Yeah. And I think at the time we made the parallel to Episode 1 and the Gungans, right? They were the isolationists, where no, it's not our war. We're going to stay out of this. And Obi-Wan of all people and Qui Gon come to them and give them that speech about, hey, you have to understand that you got a symbiotic relationship, and what happens to one is going to happen to the other. Shades of that are happening here, and it happens throughout a lot of Star Wars post.
Same story with Luke, right?
Yep.
That's how Luke got involved. Yeah.
Yep. They burned his family. What are you wearing? Are you wearing the Amber Ruse dark coffee?
Amber Ruse dark roast.
Did it have a picture on the back?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It's got the logo, and I think it says a robust body with a smoky aroma or something like that.
That sounds like a good coffee.
Yeah, it does.
How do you take your Owen? How do you take your Owens?
Straight
How do you
black.
take your Lars? Black. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so let's talk about Rogan's backstory. So I haven't seen this theory out there, and I may not be the only one. I don't know if I don't see Lauren on here, so she's not gonna be able to back me up here. But he says, I had a wife once. I knew exactly what she was before we got married. We tried to hide it, and the Inquisitors found her anyway. So on the surface, I think somebody would look at this and go, they took her away. But okay, so she's an older person, first off, right? She's not a youngling when she was taken away.
Right.
But what do you think about this being Reba?
Oh man.
Had you considered that? So think about this. What if
No, because I
Reba,
considered that she was dead.
the wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the way that he framed it said that she was, he is, because Obi-Wan had said that he doesn't know what they're capable of. And the whole point of sharing the story was to say, oh, no, I do know what they're capable of because I've seen it firsthand.
What if he played the Obi-Wan Kenobi card from a certain point of view? Like, your father's not technically dead. He's just become somebody else. And essentially that's what's happened here. Maybe he fell in love with Reba and they had a cool thing going and he knew she was force sensitive and they decided to, I don't know, do whatever still. The risk was there. They took her away, turned her into something that he no longer recognizes. And in his eyes, or maybe he doesn't even know that, maybe he thinks that she is truly dead, or if he knows that she's still alive, because she's now become this inquisitor, this evil cutting off hands of people and all that. In his eyes, she is dead, and he's seen firsthand, and that was enough to really drive him to take that step and help because he knew that Reba was involved in some way. I'm
well, except the Inquisitor said that he found Reba in the gutter, and while we assume that she was a bit younger when he found her, it seems like that circumstance might have a severe disconnect without a lot of other things to fill in the gaps that I don't think we would get in 2 episodes. So,
okay, maybe poverty. Maybe they were living in abject poverty.
It's possible.
It's possible. All right, I'm going to give that a 10.
I'm going to say it was Luminar and Dooley.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, no, because that would be a tie to Rebels. We know that she was encased in a tomb. We know that she was used by the Grand Inquisitor. So what was she doing out there? We don't know really how long she was dead.
Okay, I'll give
for
that
some time.
I'll give that one a 1%. I'm giving the Reba one 10%. Here's another.
Oh wow,
one,
that was brutal, man.
What?
Yeah,
well, I mean, Luminara would have to
How old do you think Reba is?
Around the same age as Rogan.
No, she's probably in her 20s, right?
Well, Rogan's not. I mean, O'Shea Jackson Jr. How old is he?
I don't know.
I
don't really know anything.
Research on the fly.
But anyway, if Reba is in her 20s, and this is 10 years after the Order 66, where she would have been a teenager-ish, potentially, maybe younger teenager, maybe older teenager, so I don't know. For him to have a wife for some amount of time and for her to take that kind of turn, it all seems rather sudden, but especially coming from. Yeah.
Moses Ingram is 28. O'Shea Jackson Jr. is 31.
See, like light years difference in age.
Okay. So in all seriousness, I do wonder, again, not to jump ahead, but when we get to the tomb, they show a number of people in there. Could it be one of those people? Could it be?
Oh, it very much could be one of those.
That would be the more likely scenario.
Yeah, because there were a couple women in there too that, I mean, again, of kind of varying ages, but who knows? It definitely could be one of them.
I don't know that we'll ever know one way or the other either, right? Because I don't see them going back in this series, at least, and identifying the people that are in the tomb in any way. So, maybe we'll never know. Maybe we will.
I think, it wouldn't surprise me if we got a few names over time.
Unless it's Reba, and then I think we're definitely going to find out. So,
well, at the very least, we'll be able to cross one name off the list.
10% is
That's
what
right.
I'm going with. Okay, so let's the Wade. Let's talk about Wade. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to talk about Wade. Actually, I was going to call this episode the Wade dissection episode, but
right.
I thought better of it. So
Wade Watts.
Wade Watts. Did you catch the Christina Ariel cameo?
I did. She walked by kind of in the background in the Rebel base or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The underground.
I did not,
base.
of course, catch this because it was a largely kept secret until I saw her Twitter post, of course, and then I went back and watched. Yeah. It's like, oh, there she is. She's walking.
I will say this, though. I was like, that person looks really familiar, but I didn't put it together until I saw Twitter as well. So, to be fair, I was only part of the way there.
No, I wasn't even there. I was like, whoa, look at that blue ball. Look at the red ball next to it. And the moons that they're showing.
Right.
It's in that scene where you can see her walking. So anybody that doesn't know, Christina Ariel is the one that hosts the High Republic show.
Yeah.
So
She had a funny comment, though. I think it was her that said it. The afro is now canon.
yeah, that's right. She does have the afro. Although it was already canon because of Solo.
Right.
So, okay, I want to talk about well, we can save it later when we get to the defense of the security defense of the, the Inquisitors. The lack thereof security.
Fear will keep everyone away from it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's what they were going for here.
The Empire relies a lot on just fear rather than practical type of
right.
things.
Common sense sometimes.
Right.
Well, it's like that. It's his overconfidence, right? That's his weakness. So he's confident that everything he's doing is proceeding as planned. I have this next part listed as the junk will do, because those T-47s are pieces of crap. And back to the 87 role-playing game, this is actually discussed in there when you look at the source book. It's either the source book or the Rebel Alliance source book. I forget which one it is, but there's an entry on the T-47s and just how these things are pieces of junk. And it was funny that they talked about these were being used for like what was it, trash or garbage or something, to tow away garbage. Yeah, but the way it speaks to how thrifty these people are, and I don't want to call them the rebels just yet, right? But they are able to take whatever they can and they readjust it and they add more,
retrofit it.
They retrofit it with more armor plating, and that's why they look. I don't know if you noticed, they do look a little different. They look a little skimpier than the ones.
Yeah, they're a little stubbier too. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't have the longer extensions on the front and some of that, but definitely the structure's there though.
The structure's there. Later on, they would upgrade those, of course, make the modifications, and then they had to weatherproof them so that they could be used on Hoth as well. So, whatever.
Got to keep evolving it, yeah.
Well, it's that old saying: you drive it until the wheels fall off. And
right.
It's exactly what they're doing with most of their equipment. So Tala then agrees to take Obi-Wan. She kind of steps forward, which I thought was a good. I really like her character. I like where Tala's going. She's very complex. I hope she stays with us throughout all of this. I hope she doesn't die. That's the one thing
I really thought her scenes were numbered here in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Really did.
Yeah, we'll get to that here because she's pretty brave, pretty bold.
That would have been more impactful than Wade.
Having her die instead of Wade?
Yeah.
Wade. It's going to be a meme someday if it's not already. I'm sure it will be.
That'd be a weaker meme, but yeah, maybe.
I don't underestimate the power of the internet and social media.
True.
They can turn anything into something or nothing into something. So they're headed out to Nur. We got inklings of Obi-Wan trying to use the Force for the first time, or trying to do. It was his communicator, I think, is what he was trying to pull towards him.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool. It looks like he again still struggling, but you couple that with where he is by the very end of this the breakout, and him holding back all the water and all that. I mean, he comes a long way pretty quickly here. And
he stops thinking. He just starts doing at that point.
Yeah. There's and the question that keeps coming up is he disconnected from the Force? There was Christina Baver, I think, chimed in on this and said that. Oh no, it was Kelly Knox chimed in and said that it was more about him being disconnected from himself.
Yeah, it's a mental block. Yeah, it's more of a mental block than anything else.
Right. Tala makes that comment about your body's not the only thing that needs to heal, Ben, which I thought was pretty deep. And that he's still thinking about the events of Order 66, still thinking about the past, living in the past, living with the, everything that happened, with just the shock realization that Anakin is still alive and he's now become some horrible fiend, more machine than man and more evil, right?
Yeah, and they talk about, forgetting, and Obi-Wan's like, it can't be so easily forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And, Tala comes back and says, but some things need to be. And maybe not forgotten, but you've got to just move forward and accept that, what happened, so that you can move forward and you can at least get over it. And I don't think there was any forgetting any of the events that Obi-Wan went through. And clearly he never does, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really traumatic in so many different ways, but, but it's important. It's an important lesson, though, of if you don't, you will literally die like this in some way. You will not be your best. You cannot do anything for other people unless you take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've heard this so many times over the last couple of years, right? Self-care and understanding yourself a little bit better so you can make better decisions, you know, and he's not going to, and he can't get out of his own head, and it's just not going to work if he can't do that. But sometimes you need that tough love, you know. And I'm kind of wondering, you know, do you think Tala might be a little sweet on Obi-Wan?
I was thinking about that. I mean, like, you know, I'm all down
ship
for
somebody,
shipping everybody, but I'm starting to see, like, especially the way she looks at him. I mean,
there were a couple scenes that definitely looked like she was looking at him a little bit differently than just, we need to go save his kid. You know?
Yeah. There's at least a personal, emotional connection of some sort, and it's hard to say where that's manifesting just yet. But when the way she's looking at him, when, you know, he's holding on at the very, very beginning of the episode, and she's nurturing him, right? And that's her job, and I get it. I'm not saying anything there, but it's just the way she looks at him from that point on, like she connects with him, and I don't know. We'll see if that really kind of.
It was really whenever she volunteered to take him. I think it was the moment I think I had noticed something.
Yeah.
You know, because she kind of did, and then she had this like awkward moment afterwards, like, oh, did I just say all that?
Yeah, my stupid heart spoke. But going back to what going back to Obi-Wan Kenobi and having to get past the past, if you will. There's just quickly, we talked about this. Yeah, well, we've talked about this with Star Wars fandom, but the stages of grief.
Yeah.
Right. Denial, anger, then bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Right. And he's somewhere in this bargaining depression piece. He's somewhere in that which is on the up. He's on the up. But he never gets it. It's not until he gets to the acceptance piece of it that is what she's kind of speaking to, probably, you know, from a more scientific approach to all of it.
Right. And we had it when he came out of the bacta and he says, "Where's Leia?" I mean, you start to feel like there was a shift in that moment where he is starting to think for someone else and not and let go of some of that self-centered type of feelings, right? All of a sudden that caring side of Obi-Wan seems to be coming out. And I think that really came across, I mean, especially at the very end, but we actually see this throughout the episode where, especially when they're reunited and really all the way leading up to find Leia, you can really just sense like this is a different Obi-Wan Kenobi now. And it was in that moment, like when he asked about her, you could just, there was just something different about it that, you know, he didn't care about himself. He needs to go take care of this kid because not only is it what he needs to do to protect the galaxy and do what he said he would do, you know, what he would do for his friend, but he's actually starting to care for her as well. And this is really going to be important, I think, as we, you know, get later on and some of the scenes that we have in A New Hope with how Leia reacts to, you know, Ben Kenobi start to make a lot more sense.
So how do you feel about, I mean, I like the idea that he pulls himself out, but I also was kind of liking the idea that he was going to have a pep talk from somebody like Qui Gon Jinn. I think Qui Gon Jinn is still going to happen, but maybe it is going to be just kind of like the reward for all of this, that he becomes so connected to the Force again that he's able to talk to Qui Gon Jinn for the first time or once again, and he's not been able to so long because he's been self-loathing for so long, you know. But how do you feel about either way? You know, whether or not we get. I guess how do you feel about him pulling himself out of this, or do you think he's only going to get so far? He still needs somebody like a Qui-Gon Jinn to get him get him the rest of the way.
Well, see, I think it was important for him to pull himself out of this, and I think we've talked about that a couple of times now, where you really the Jedi have this thing: if you don't, you got to do a certain amount of this for yourself before you can move on, because otherwise you will, I don't know, you'll kind of end up like an Anakin of sorts, right? You don't learn enough, you don't grow enough to where you can't really finally achieve the things you're supposed to, and then you start moving on, and all the flaws, all the cracks are there, and you don't know how to handle them properly. So with Qui-Gon, I very much have started to feel like now, I still think that there's a good chance that we get Qui-Gon, but now it's starting to feel more like an epilogue type of thing at the very end.
Yeah.
And again, maybe not a reward, may not be how I phrase it, but something of, he's finally ready. And I think that's maybe what I said a couple of weeks ago, is that he's finally going to be ready, and that's when the training can begin. And that's when we'll get that moment.
Yep. I'm with you. I still like that. I still like the fact that this is going to, you know, we would have potentially see him there at the very end. All right. So they get to the fortress.
Whoa, hold on. You think we're going to see him or just hear him?
Oh, we talked about this. I think we're going to see him.
Okay. That's right. Because I think we'll just hear him. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And we're going to be right either way, because we've both of them covered.
Cantina Cast is going to be 1 for 1.
Well, we need a third person to come in and say,
Oh,
no,
that screws up the averages, man.
Yeah, well, I'm saying if the third person comes in, then they can say, no, we're not going to see or hear him, and then we're covered. Right, we've got all scenarios covered at that point.
That's right. We need to find a guest that thinks there's no chance of Qui Gon coming in.
We'll bring somebody on to the next show, have them chime in, and then if they want to stick around, cool. But otherwise, you can bounce. Okay. Okay. So they get to Fortress Inquisitorius. Lots of echoes from the Jedi Fallen Order. We'll probably talk about some of those here in a little bit. I'm assuming though that they just dropped him, on a close by into the water, right?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
She just slowed down to a cool 20 miles an hour and dumped him out the car door. Yeah.
Yep. Tuck and roll, dude. Tuck and roll. So that gets him. That's how he gets down under there. This is where I think she had some really good moments, especially when she's coming up to that freaking TSA agent. I need to put. I was gonna make something. I was gonna want to show that and go. We've all been here at the airport, right? Where that TSA agent is just being a complete jerk. Those guys, I get they have a tough job. But when I was I don't want to digress here too much. But when we were flying out to Anaheim, I had the worst TSA agent. He was just absolutely hating himself, hating life, rude to everybody. And this was at the or was it the Long Beach?
Long Beach
airport. And I'm like, dude, you live in Long Beach. Go smoke a doobie. Get some
Everybody else was in California.
Everybody else is super nice and chill and super high. And this guy was just mad. I don't understand why. Okay. So where was I going with this? Oh, so she walks up to the TSA agent, right? And she double downs on her thing, which I thought this was oh crap, they caught her, right? She's got to go through the metal detector there and all that. But I love the fact that she doubled down on that guy and put him in his place, and
that makes sense. That's exactly how does an Imperial behave, and she is an Imperial. I mean, we can't forget that she actually is an Imperial, and she just has to remind herself this is how things operate, and it works. The chain of command is very important, and you will get smacked down. So you have to do the smack sometimes.
So this is I want to talk about the security of the Fortress Inquisitorius here. It does feel pretty lax still. And again, this is what? This is after Fallen Order. It's just shortly after Fallen Order. And Cal got into here.
So I think Fallen Order was 5 years after Order 66. Was it further after that?
Maybe, yeah. But I'm saying this happens there were 10 years from Order 66 at this point, right?
Right.
So I'm saying Cal's he's already broke into this place. And at least they in the game, you go under the water into that little tube, into the tunnel and come out, right? And there was never anybody that had to turn down or open the port or anything. So maybe they've put at least some measures in place where someone has to manually override those and you can't just creep in underneath.
Right.
But for the most part, I don't know that I saw a whole lot of difference in terms of the security. Now, this isn't feedback. This isn't a knock. I think it speaks to in all seriousness, I think it speaks to what you mentioned earlier about these guys, and Rogan says this as well, right? No one's stupid enough to go invade this thing. One, think about where this planet is, this moon is, right? It's in the Mustafar system.
Yeah, it's next door. Yeah,
who the hell is
door to the baddest guy in the galaxy?
Exactly. Who's just, you know what? I'm going to go drive by Mustafar and see what happens. This is probably a haunted system. Nobody goes here. Okay.
Right.
First and foremost. Then on top of that, that place is crawling with Jedi sensitive people. There's in Rebels, they talked about how Mustafar was where Jedi go to die or disappear. Right. So that lore, the legend's already out there of really bad things that happen to anybody that goes out in that area. So on some level, I get that they don't need maybe the security systems that they have. Plus, who are they fighting? Right. The Rebel Alliance is not established. These are small sects of bandit fighters that there was, natural resistance that happened as a result of the Empire coming in. That's going to be expected. They can contend with that all day, every day. But they're not fighting raids of ships coming in or any of that stuff. So yeah, they got a battalion or what do you call them? I don't know what the term is for TIE fighters, but they've got some hanging there in the hangar, right? So they have those, but
those squad, something like that.
Yeah. Right. So those were other things. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not really hung up on the fact that they were able to get in so easily, that they were able to move around as easily. And I'm using air quotes because it did seem like at least the seeker droids were there and It seemed when I saw that grid, there was tons of little red dots. So they had these things all over the place.
Right.
But and then it doesn't. I think it's fine. I think it makes sense that the T-47s would be able to kind of come in there and take some cheap shots at them and leave. But how do you feel about the overall security presence or lack thereof?
The nickname of the system, or the most of our system's nickname, is the Vader's system, like Tala says, right? So I mean, you're right. Who the heck would want to go anywhere near any of this, knowing what Vader has at his disposal? I didn't really have any problem with it. I mean, you got to get in there somehow, and I think the way they did it was at least very plausible, right? You have an insider, you can go in there, she can open a hatch. You know, the security system is not triggered. At least it wasn't just open to where you could just swim underneath and get in, right? So I'm okay with how it was. And again, maneuvering inside, again, it's like going to a hospital. You know, hospital, you have security guards in places, but it's not, hospital's not a great example, but you know, you have a place where you know there's security, but it doesn't mean that it's actually really secure security. They're just kind of checking the box that they've got people around that can report something if something happens. Those droids didn't appear to be armed. And all they did was just sound a siren whenever they found Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. So it's again, it wasn't really designed to be that, and that's why they had stormtroopers there. Yeah, and again, they seem to have quite a number of stormtroopers, but they weren't the ones doing. They were doing some active patrols, but again, relying on the droids to go and do that. The probe droids to or the seeker droids rather, to take care of that aspect of it.
Yep. Yeah, it felt like even the stormtroopers were kind of there just to supplement.
Oh, did you read the closed caption for the two stormtroopers that were walking by Obi-Wan in the tunnel?
I did. I forget. It was something about one of them.
This
being
place is creepy.
Out.
Yeah, this place is creepy. Can't wait to move on. Basically.
Yeah.
Just idle chatter from stormtroopers is always amusing.
Well, the creepy part makes sense because when he said that, I thought that's weird that he would say it's creepy, and I thought, oh well, maybe it's because Vader or the Inquisitors. But then we find out, oh no, they got a bunch of dead people down at the bottom. So, okay, that makes more sense.
I mean, then they're underwater with all these things swimming outside of it, whatever.
Right.
It's like living in an aquarium, yeah.
And glass, it doesn't seem like it was whoever the structural engineers of this thing, they're terrible. That one,
whoever did the training about shooting inside with glass. I mean, we really need to address the root problem, which is training. In this one.
Yep. And yeah, it's like the government, right? It's like the lowest bidder. So you get what you pay for, guys. Sorry, hate to break it to you. Where are we with this? Okay, so we talked about Kestis and Fallen Order. So were you at any moment expecting him to jump into the armor? Because I was like, holy crap, he's going to get into a suit of armor because that stormtrooper he knocks out. I even looked at the size, like, oh, he's the right height, and didn't happen, which is fine. I don't think it's a missed opportunity, as I've heard.
I think it would have been a little too
on the nose
cliche, yeah, for him to do what we've seen others do, yeah.
All right.
So I was glad. I mean, but I will give you this though, based on our conversation last week. Obi-Wan certainly did look a lot more like a Jedi this time. So he's done hiding that he's a Jedi.
Yeah. Yeah, he
looked a lot more Jedi-like this week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had some really good moments that we're coming up to here in just a second. This place did seem, again, more secure on the inside than the outside, and I think we've already kind of beat that dead horse into why. All right, so Tala learns that the Empire is hiding something down below, and then this is when this officer comes in and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like it felt like she was like at the public library. It was like somebody next to her, and she was using the internet, and she takes them back there. And there's been some people complaining about, she left leaving the communicator there on the table was obviously a callback to A New Hope. I mean, it was almost
the framing. Yeah, the framing of it was exactly the same.
Yeah, I want to go back and I need to make these notes because I always say I'm going to go back and put these things side by side, and try to beat Star Wars parallels. But there's that was definitely a callback, and we don't know how much time passed. So she may have waited. She may have stalled until that other person that was, I don't know, checking his mail left, and then she took out that officer and then came back. Don't try to figure that stuff out. You just kill yourself. It's not important. There's but yeah, I like the nod there to A New Hope, and then we get Obi-Wan walking into this Jedi tomb. Now,
yeah, this was really creepy.
Did they call this a Jedi tomb?
That's what. Well, Obi-Wan said it's not a. I forgot what he said. It wasn't this, but he's like, it's a tomb.
It's a tomb as well, he said.
Yeah, he didn't call it a Jedi tomb, but he just called it a tomb. But clearly, that's what it was.
So in one of the other viewings I had afterwards, And maybe it was because I saw or read somebody say that it was a Jedi tomb. But then when the first couple times I watched it, I didn't take it as a Jedi tomb. I just thought these were all Force sensitive people because some of them look like Jedi. Some of them are definitely Jedi, and some of them may not. They don't look like Jedi.
Right.
Right. I think it makes more sense for it to be Force sensitive in some way, and we'll theorize. I don't know that anybody was shocked that what this possibly could be, especially if you follow Rebels or you watch, you've been keeping up with events on The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker. I think this is just kind of hitting all that home here. But
makes a lot of sense why they would preserve the bodies. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and we've not talked about this, but I'm assuming you're on the same page that this is part of their plans to try to take midichlorians and create Force sensitive beings or a host body for Palpatine as a contingency some a point down the road, or just general experimentation with midichlorians. And
what do you think? I think that's exactly what it all is. It's like you just preserve the body until you're ready to do something with it. And the Emperor's not going to throw anything to waste on some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. There's this is I was hoping we'd see like a clone or a Snoke. Wouldn't that be funny?
That would have been amusing.
It would have been amusing. I don't know if that would have been really cool. All of these subjects that were in this thing, I know people have been saying they look like amber, and I don't know what it is. We saw this with Luminara Unduli in Star Wars Rebels.
Yep, exactly.
Right? She was in that same kind of a tomb.
It was more like a coffin in that case, though. But yes, it was some sort of amberish, yellow, orange stuff around her.
Is what the word I had. But
yes, sarcophagus
with a window, because they're right advanced technology type stuff. But we got to see a number of people. I texted you a spoiler because I was trying to throw you off because I said Terra Sanube. That's all I texted to Jonesy like at 3 a.m. And I was hoping he'd look at that and go, "Oh man, Terra Sanube's in this," and he was, but he was dead.
Right. Well, I had a feeling he was alive.
Hey, well, you didn't know. I mean, he's lived a very long time.
He lived very many lifetimes. Yeah.
And I know people have been quick to say, "Oh, he was in Clone Wars," but he was also in the High Republic.
He was, yeah. He mentioned all the way back there.
So he's been around for quite some time. He's brought up in the Rising Storm. But we saw you had mentioned Farron Barr.
Yeah, the very first one on the right when Obi-Wan walks in looks like it might be Farron Barr.
Well, and I saw like it does. I got to go back and look at it now too because it looks like one horn is shorter than the other, and that
does. Because they were both broken off at the very end. And lucky for you, I have Twitter up right now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Where we can actually...
Someone said this was a, what is it, the Yongi? The three-eyed looking things or the whatever, they got the eyes on the side like that. Someone said it was one of those. And I thought, well, that's
maybe,
different.
But it's difficult to see. All right, you can see this, right? Or add it
to
the stream.
I got to add to the stream. Here we go.
There we go. Yeah, so again... The horns are broken off here on both ends, but you see the sharper fingers. Again, it's the things that are not the same though, or whatever these little trails are off the chin. And again, there's no real clear facial features. But for comparison, this is Farron Barr when he had 1.5 horns. But again, you see some of the similarities, right? The head shape, the finger shape, the robes. Mm-hmm. I mean, the robes can be really anything. And then after he's dead. You can see the left side over here has broken off. So both horns are now broken. Now they're broken a bit higher up than what we see in the show here, but at the same time, he's got a giant hole in his chest too, but
yeah.
You have to take some liberties though. Again, none of these bodies have any kind of real markings on them though, that there's something wrong and that there's been something that how they died is really unclear, especially with like the kid. Presumably a youngling has this look of shock in his face, right?
Yeah.
And very, very interesting on that one.
Well, I want to talk about the younglings because I think the credits give that one away a little bit. If you go back and watch the credits, the Eugene's with us and says, I thought I saw dreadlocks. One of them looked like one of the women that Haja helped escape. I thought, I can go back and look at that one. I don't
a little bit. Yeah. And there was also a male on the left, right when you go in, and that was another one of those, could that be a Quinlan? But the stripe wasn't there across the nose and some things like that just weren't there.
And I think if it would have been Quinlan, especially since the way we got Kenobi reacting to just his name.
There would have been more, yeah.
Yeah, I think they would have done that. Other than, maybe it was and they cut it, which I don't think that would have been fair either. So I don't think that was Quinlan Voss.
Yeah.
But at first glance, I was like, holy crap, that's Quinlan Voss. Like he's dead. We're getting a confirmation that he's dead. But the youngling, so the youngling that's there, if you go back and look at the credits, it's the same youngling that was in the very first episode.
I figured it was.
So, and I went back and I looked at it, and it's the kid. You got to look at the ears. So if you look at the kid, he's kind of got some big ears. No offense to the kid, but they're kind of they're not big, but they're just forward. And that's the telltale sign. There's a kid at the very beginning. He's the one squatting down. His ears are kind of large, and that's the same boy that's in there. So
wait,
now,
which scene was this?
In the opening one, the one where we had the flashback, the Order 66, in the first episode.
Okay.
So when they're all kind of bending down and looking at their master that was teaching them, right before they turn and run, the little boy that's kneeling down straight front and center, he's the one that's encased in the tomb.
Gotcha.
Now, here's the thing, though. So then again, if we ever get this, which maybe we're not going to, maybe this is just all, again, more headcanon stuff, but what if that was, does Reba know that kid's down there? Is Reba, I wouldn't say she turned on him. I don't think it seems like that's way too soon, but it could have been in one of these things where they were both together and, that kid was taken from her and Reba got away somehow. I mean, just think about what that probably does to her. You know what I mean? Knowing that she was a Padawan with this kid at one point, and he's encased in this tomb, living or dead or whatever it is down there, and knowing that they're probably experimenting on him. I don't know. There's something really creepy about all of that and where she's at.
And again, he could. I mean, with what he's wearing and the age, it seems like he was captured relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. And so maybe this is what Reva was referring to a bit too, that, you can't trust anybody.
Right.
And maybe they were a group and like you said, she got away, but he wasn't because someone turned on them and ratted them out, even though they were children. And so again, that's down there as a reminder. And again, maybe that's why we see maybe some potential conflict, going on within Reva. But I like that a lot, that she got away, but he didn't. And then that's a reminder all the time about what that series of events was. And assuming they all went through it at the very same time, she was just lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, and lucky's a frame of mind and a point of view, because if she got away, she may have had a terrible, rough life for potentially several years before other events took her to a different place. So, and not like going to the Inquisitors is a walk in the park. In
my experience, there's no such thing as luck. Okay, so then
till you have bad luck.
So there's let's talk about, okay, so this is all going on. This is where I wanted to ask you a question. So Kenobi hears the screams of Princess Leia, because going back to where she's at in this moment, she's on the interrogation table, which is one of the ones that I remember from, I think it was from Fallen Order as well. It looked very similar. It looked a lot like that and looked similar to the one that was used in Force Awakens. So anyways, but and the Chewbacca scene I just thought about that. Chewbacca scene from, was it Last Jedi? Rise of Skywalker, yeah. Something similar. Okay.
Yeah, things haven't really evolved whole much in the Empire, First Order, whatever you want to call them.
Not a lot of advancements in the.
Just need a slab and some needles. We're good to go.
Right. Yep. But he hears, I guess, a sound. He tells Tala, "I need a distraction of some sort." What was unclear to me, and again, it sounds superficial and really not important, but we need to milk this for a 2-hour show. Was that him literally hearing the screams, or was he hearing that through the Force?
I think he literally heard the screams because he was pretty close by.
So why wouldn't he have busted in and done something then?
I think he probably didn't know what was on the other side of the wall. And I think some of it was he needed to get if Leia was screaming, presumably the Inquisitor was there with her. So I'm thinking he probably had.
Okay. No.
Yeah, he probably drew some conclusions that, okay, I need to get whoever's in there with her out, or at least dwindle that down into a minimum so I can, knock the lights out and then play the boogeyman.
All right. Well, we cut back over to Tala's interrogation now, and this is where there's a distraction. They're about to start that, and that lady comes in, disturbs her, and says, "Look, this is very important." Whatever. By the way, Lauren just chimed in and said she does support Rogan and Reba. So for the record, they come back to Tara.
Screenshot or it didn't happen.
Tala is interrogating.
But does she? But hold on. But did she comment on Tala and Obi-Wan?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We haven't gotten there yet. She's coming back to the show. She said she's coming back to the live feed here in just a little bit, so we can ask her when she gets here. She's going to support it, though. I already know So Reva is now interrogating Tala, and this is where I felt like, oh, there's no way she's going to talk her way out of this scene.
Right.
Like, there's just it's not going to happen because of Reva and who she is, and even to the very end, Reva does not believe her. It's like you said, she don't believe anybody, right? Everybody's guilty until proven innocent, and even then,
everyone's a suspect at the very least, right?
yeah, because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. But she mentions that they're on Florum, out in the Surtar sector. That's the only place I remember that from is in Clone Wars, and it was what was his name? Hondo. Hondo was from Flora. That's where he had his base. Remember in the
Oh,
episode where
yeah.
the brother and all them, the pirates, and they were all attacking each other. Not the brother, yeah, like Maul and
We need
Press.
a Hondo dissection.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be.
We don't talk about Hondo
It'll be a
enough.
series. It'll be a series. It's not going to be a
True.
single episode. That's for sure. But she mentions
It's gonna be an
Flora.
anthology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then she goes into this like on the fly about how I'm a double agent, right? I was undercover for with them for us, and that's how I know all this stuff. And it's all very good, kind of I guess a front or a cover, but
Again, double down, man. If
Yeah.
you're gonna go all in, go all in.
But she was quick. That's why I loved her. I love the fact that she was that quick. It reminds me of somebody like a Cassian Andor. She's got that the ability to kind of think on her feet. These are the kind of people that the rebellion are going to want. And so when I say I don't want her to die, it's because I kind of would like to see her pop up. I don't know, in the Andor series later down the road or something. Where she's
That'd be
now,
pretty awesome.
yeah, where she's now like a ranking member of the Rebel Alliance because she's showing she's got the chops to think on her feet and train and do all kinds of stuff. Right? She's kind of part of this initial grassroots effort that is slowly starting to grow legs.
Yeah, she sure doesn't have a job in the Empire anymore.
No, yeah, I think her
I think
LinkedIn's going to get updated.
that's over.
Yep.
Her LinkedIn gonna get
It's going to be updated here very soon. And just and even like right after when she finally, they say that Kenobi's here, it kind of trails off, but you can hear Reva say, "Take her to the interrogation room," and some of the fact of I think she stops it. If everything's true, then and it stops. So she still didn't believe her. I mean, she was going to interrogate her and use whatever methods they needed to get the truth out.
Right.
But that was very risky, all in. But okay, so my favorite scene though was this next scene. I just visually, I really love the fact that the way Deborah Chow said it. And we're talking about we're in the interrogation room. The lights go out, and it's all completely black with the exception of the red lighting down underneath. But just that red blue contrast. I mean, we saw this a lot with the sequel trilogy and the posters that they were creating. A lot of the artwork that was coming out of that.
Right.
We get. I had shades of like the fight scene between Dooku and Anakin in Attack of the Clones when the lights went out and that. I mean, that was the same kind of effect, but this was just so much more brighter because of his lightsaber. I got a question about that. Does it bother you that it's so bright? Like he's using it as a light source, like we mentioned in one of the episodes before. I don't know that we've seen it this, like, I'm trying to think of when has a lightsaber ever been as bright as Kenobi's in this one.
I mean, Vader's is pretty bright too.
Well, yeah,
lightsabers in general. It is, man. It casts a very blue on everything, everywhere. And I think some of this is because they're actually holding physical lights when they're filming all of this.
Yeah.
And so to get that natural color, and I think it's really harsh. I think it's really probably all it is. It's just, it's a really harsh light. And so it's a bit oversaturated, I think, visually. But I think in these types of moments, it works really well because you get that, that illumination around you in a bigger space. Whereas in some scenes, it seems a bit overkill because it's right up on him, and you don't need as much of that when you're in the light, but it's still coming through really brightly, rather than a shimmering type of light. Yeah, it's very, very intense.
Eugene just blurted out lightsabers, but Ken said, "Well, it has light in the name," which is true. I mean, they are
True
lightsabers.
These are like super lightsabers. I mean, light could also mean it's not very heavy too, right?
Well, I guess. Now you're taking the fun out of it. But they're supposed to not weigh anything.
That's what I do.
Yep, I suck the fun out of everything. But I would like them to go back and redo a lot of those. Like, I hate to say that because I know I'm probably pissing off some people and the purists that are out there that exist in Star Wars land. And oh my God, there's a lot of them. But the purists would say, no, don't touch those things. But I thought it'd be cool if they would go back and just like, especially that scene with Dooku and Dooku and Anakin Attack of the Clones, because I just felt like that was one where, although, well, now I say that,
No, those were really bright because they used the light sticks in that one too.
well, they did, but I was going to say I actually like the play of the shadows in that one more than this one. Right? This was
Right.
here's the light because you're going to see bits and pieces of what Kenobi's doing, then it's going to go out very
Right.
stealthy, like very ninja like. So I don't know. Maybe it works both ways. Maybe if they go back and do a New Hope, the fight between both of them, they beef up they did in the 97 ones. I know that they redid some of the lighting on it a little bit, but they not to this level.
They tried to do well. The special editions were a mess visually with some of the stuff with color correction and everything else. Yeah, exactly. Multiple versions of it.
Yep.
Yeah, they kind of messed with some of them, but not all of it. And then the color corrections were all screwed up. And that's what Eugene's saying here. Lucas brightened them up in the original trilogy special edition, right? Kind of.
I mean, I think they were still limited in what they could do, and now they probably could just do whatever the hell they wanted to. But
yeah, they couldn't go in and completely rotoscope it again with more modern technology or more techniques. So they didn't do it quite like we would have expected it to. But you also notice these lightsabers are a lot thicker because again, they're using more of the physical prop, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a well, I was gonna say it's very different than the ones we see in Star Wars Rebels, but that was because that is based on the McQuarrie artwork, and you get the really thin toothpick type lightsabers and the thinner looking characters.
But these are even different than what we had in the prequels too, right? Where they had the more pointy tips to them, and yes, I mean there's a lot of, and including in Clone Wars. So yeah, it's very lightsabers tend to evolve. That's fine,
and that's again not this is anything we're going. Oh, they messed this up. That's not what we're saying here. I actually like the progression. I guess what I'm saying is I actually like the way these look, and I like the fact that they're as bright as they are in this one. I just wonder if they would be able to carry that out through the other movies now that we've seen it. There's I about lost it when when he kills the first stormtrooper and then the lights go out. You can hear that poor sap go, "There's no way out." Like there's like no lights on at all. And I just died. I thought it was the funniest thing. Like, what are you going to do, dude? Like, you really think you can't even see in the dark, number one. And he's like idle threats of, your time's up, buddy. So,
did you not see what happened to your partner just across the way?
Yeah. The other thing that was so subtle is, and if you go back and watch, when he's unloosening the straps and all that to get Leia out, she has got the biggest smile on her face. Like it's a very genuine, I feel safe. Dad's here, and I'm not implying anything there. But just,
I was so waiting for her just to jump and give him a hug.
Yeah.
I was like, why won't you just do it?
Yeah, I was with you, but it's such a sweet moment. You gotta see her face. Like her eyes are moving back and forth, and she's got the biggest smile on her face, waiting for that final strap. And she just kind of jumps out, and that's fine. I think we get a better moment of that, obviously, at the very end.
But what I like is Obi-Wan's reaction, though, too, here, because Obi-Wan gives her a much softer look than he has consistently, throughout the previous episodes. And when he said, you can hear it in his voice too. I'm going to get you home now.
Yeah,
and it's just this very calm and, I mean, again, kind of fatherly, or brotherly or friendly. It's very different than you're a burden on me, and I'm just doing this because I was guilted into it by your dad.
Yeah.
So that part of it, that kind of bitterness, if you will, has gone away from Obi-Wan, and you get this again, that kinder and more generous, and the Obi-Wan Kenobi that we have known and loved is starting to resurface, and he's getting more comfortable with that being him.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing to be those things, even in these really difficult times.
Yeah, I think they did a good job, whether it was through, I guess, the stage direction, if you want to call it that, or the fact that Ewan put the time and effort into to kind of show us that progression, right, of all of these different aspects of what a Jedi is in the use of their power, in their compassion, in their selflessness, and seeing that starting to become more and more like the Obi-Wan that we know. And he's at the end of this episode, he is a stark different person than he was at the very beginning, So
absolutely.
We can talk more on that here in just a little bit. There's they head to the tunnel. Let's talk about the tunnel scene. It was another great tunnel scene. I saw somebody post the image of Luke in his tunnel scene, then Vader, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you had the red, the green, and the red, blue lightsabers, and you never want to get caught in a tunnel with the Jedi unless you're another Jedi, I guess is
Right.
the story there. But he was on fire, man. Like he was doing and even in that just little scene, like where he starts at the very beginning, he looks a little awkward, but he's effective. But by the
Right.
very end, like you said, he's like, I mean, he's flipping blaster bolts to knock out equipment or whatever that thing was, that panel there. And
Yeah,
then
he was
he
he
ends
was
it with his
blocking
little
them backwards too, like from
Oh, yeah.
behind him. Yeah, there were a
shot
couple
that
times
one
there.
stormtrooper deflecting that. And then, of
Yeah.
course, we get the little twirl, which, I saw some of the reactions and people were just losing their minds over that, which is rightful, or is right. I mean, I get it. I was pretty excited too.
I was about to say, if you didn't, we're just going to end the show and just completely
No.
cancel the podcast in
Yeah,
general.
we're done. We're hanging
Yeah.
up. No, I mean,
Because you're starting
we're-
to sound like a separatist.
yeah, that's my line. You don't get to use that one. You're supposed to be, I don't believe you. And you're starting to sound like a separatist. I mean, the only thing we're missing is his little like 2-finger point thing.
Right.
And I wonder if we're going to get that because it feels like it'd be on the nose, but at the same time, I'm down for it. Like, let him do that to Vader.
He did it well because he did it to Maul, right? So
Sure. It's his thing.
why not?
Trademark move. And if he's back, man. You got to bring him back all the way. You can't stop at just a little twirl. So yeah, he looked a little rusty. He got a little bit better there. There's another funny moment for me that I don't think is not feedback. They're in the tunnel and he screams at Leia, "Hide!" And I'm like, Obi-Wan,
There's nowhere to hide.
where is she going to hide? There is no place. You're in a tunnel. There's really no. It was just
Well, she's literally just kind of hugging the wall, basically, because you can't even get through, like the beams don't go all the way down to the
Nope.
windows. You basically have to get up in the window.
yeah. She would have to like
It's like on a cruise ship. You got to go sit
Yeah.
up in the window.
into the window itself on the sill in some way. That would have been a hide. But I was
He
thinking,
should have
well,
said, "Get behind me! Get behind me!"
exactly. Yeah. It was just funny because I was thinking.
I laughed too. I was with you.
How many times have you ordered a child to do something because you're just instinctively saying it and then realizing that, okay, well, that's stupid. They can't do that or whatever. I mean, it's just,
Right.
It was in the moment. Right. So I'm going to chalk that up to inexperienced parenthood. We get the crack in the glass and I mean, this is a pretty large feat to have held back that much water and that much pressure for as long
Yeah.
as he did too. Right. It wasn't just like, let me stop this thing. I mean, he was buying everybody time, trying to keep it. And then he almost looked like he was diverting the water at the very end. Like, I can't remember how she did it. She kind of like took the camera and
I thought he was going to like force it down the hallway, but what
Yeah.
it looks like he really did is he really shattered everything else and like basically pushed as much as he could that way, before he turned around and started hauling ass out.
okay. All right. Now I get it.
But yeah, so he started breaking all the glass down there because I thought, he was just going to kind of take it and redirect it. But
Either
fair
way,
enough.
it was a feat of the Force that I thought was pretty significant. Right.
Well, again, that's not a small task. That is a very difficult task. And I think that was really finally the final confirmation that the strength of Obi-Wan Kenobi is back for the most part. Now, is he going to be as good as what he was 10 years ago? Still probably no, right? But the confidence is growing. He's not thinking, he's not overthinking, and he's just doing this stuff, and it's all coming back. That muscle memory is starting to, to reform and come back, and he's going to be able to hold his own, coming up here in the future.
Yep. So that Force takes out the Purge Trooper, that one Purge Trooper, and Stormtroopers as well. And then let's jump to the trench coat. So somebody said this was the Little Rascals, and I guess you have to know or have seen. I think they did it in the movie too, because it is a very memorable episode of the Little Rascals where they go 3 high.
Yeah,
or
it's
too high.
done in cartoons and everything.
Yeah. But the trench coat, and I saw there was like an establishing shot earlier on with a character who had a trench coat. I think there's like at least 2 other scenes where you see this.
There are, yeah.
So I mean, they were kind of setting it up so that it wouldn't look weird. And I don't know why people are getting so bent out of shape about this. I actually thought it was funny. Like, of all the things, this was really the best thing they had. And they could have wrote this other ways. I mean, they could have found like a utility, like a repulsor lift utility cart. You know what I mean? And like stuck her underneath there or something else. But I think this was kind of funny. And I think I know some people have said, well, this dumbs down the Empire. Well, sorry to break this news to you, but this has been going on in Star Wars, right? Ever since the originals. They've always been kind of dumbed down. And
Yeah, I've on the other hand, I've seen some people try to explain this away, like, well, the klaxons were going off and people were rushing here and there. No, go rewatch it. Outside, everybody was still just kind of casually walking around like there was nothing wrong. I think that was the part I had. It wasn't so much like how they were doing it, because, like you said, you just make do with what you have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what they had. You do it, and you just try not to get noticed. But they walked through a lot of Imperials when a lot of things were going on, and it wasn't that they were all super crazy busy and just ignoring and bumping into everyone.
Mm-hmm.
They were literally just kind of strolling through. So I think some of the criticism's actually pretty valid in that regard. And that's not a hill to die on, though, by any stretch.
No,
but it was a bit. It was a bit comical, though, that they were just kind of strolling out.
It was. It was comical, and I took it as almost a positive kind of comedy thing. Like,
well, I mean, Obi-Wan, you could definitely tell, like, this is the dumbest thing I think I've ever done.
Oh yeah, like
how is this
not going to work? It's not going to work. Not going to work. But again, you have to you have to take it at face value that there was a lot going on, and yeah, people may have been moving around casually. That's probably a limitation of the set itself more than anything else, and not having a lot of room to kind of hurry around in because they're on that what's it called? It's not the view freaking system, that stage system.
The volume.
The volume. Thank you. Yes. They've only got so much room on that thing, so they can't go run around on a full set like they normally would.
Yeah, and again, the Inquisitors, when they're still inside, I mean, the Inquisitors, I know, are walking the other way, and they're kind of on the far left, and the Inquisitors are coming at us.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Fifth Brother is totally consumed with being angry with Reba again, right?
Yeah.
And he's just, she's going to pay for this. It's just, again, it's just their focus isn't there, and they can't get out of their own stuff right in front of them.
So when this was going on, the line that ran through my head was, "This is some rescue." Like,
yeah,
this was their best plan. So I have a genuine question, though. Like, what was their plan to get her out? It was never discussed.
That's exactly where I was going. Like, what they were going out there, but what were they going to do when they got there? Because they had no expectations that, like, oh, you know what? They were probably going to take Tala's ship.
Oh, that's where they were trying to head off.
Yeah, okay. So they were probably, I don't know why that just didn't click, but yeah, they were probably trying to get back to her ship. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes more sense. All right. I'll give them a pass on that one. But I was thinking, what were they planning on doing? Like, did they not have, but yeah, I guess the ship was still there, and I guess they were banking on it not going anywhere, which is kind of a.
Now, I don't know where it was because I didn't see it, but
yeah, it got moved, towed. Got a wheel lock on it somewhere. Ken says it's like Shawshank Redemption. You never look at someone's feet. I love that line because I love that movie, and it's very true. Andy Dufresne says that you never look at someone's feet when he walks out with the ward's shoes that he's been polishing the whole movie. So that's a deep cut. Let's see. So then we get the traitor line. Traitor! And this is Reba coming in.
A traitor.
Yep. And she says, this is, Tala says, this is never who I was. And what she's saying there, there were some people that I think that I saw people were asking questions about what she meant in that moment. And it's really about what we had said. She joined the Empire with all the good intentions and thinking that, she bought into all of the marketing and all that stuff and the recruitment films and all that, and realized that, whoa, these guys are pretty awful people. And by her saying this is never who I was never somebody who belonged in this empire. So you can't label me as a traitor because I've never really been in this fight for you guys, right?
Right.
Is all really that was kind of going. So this kind of gives her more of her backstory, and it aligns with her recent interview that she did as well.
And again, this is the definitive moment of where clearly that end of the life is done for her to be able to confront that directly to the Inquisitor. I think it was a big moment for her. Of course, she had nothing else to do but just sit there and have a chat anyway.
Yeah.
As you're surrounded by stormtroopers and purge troopers.
I was generally thinking like, wow, how the heck are they going to get out of this? Like, and I wasn't really anticipating the T-47s. I was kind of just caught up in the moment. This is where I was on the edge of my seat going, holy crap, what is going to happen now? Because, and the one thing that struck me interestingly also was the fact that Kenobi, now the T-47s come in and they blow up the place and all that. And I'm not even going to talk about, well, how did they get out? And it looks like they could have stopped. And shut up, just watch the show, right? But when they
could have stopped, what are you talking about?
There were some people like, how would they have stopped? They were coming in too fast. There wasn't a lot of room for them.
When they,
I saw somebody took it and then they like put the measurements up there, like this is approximately X amount of meters, and they were going at this speed, so therefore they wouldn't have been able to pull out of that. It would have been a suicide mission. I'm like, wow, Star Wars.
Have you ever
fans.
played Rogue Leader? Was that the video game where you could slow it way down, you could turn on a dime? I mean, come on, play some old Star Wars games, folks.
Well, whatever. It's so frustrating. But that's not what I want to talk about.
It's gonna be all right, my friend. It's gonna be all right.
Here's what I want to talk about. The more substantial thing that I noticed is I felt like when that was going on, Kenobi used his blaster more than he did his lightsaber, and I thought, well, and again,
didn't use his lightsaber at all. Yeah,
he didn't pull it out, and I thought, well, he would have felt like more confident, especially with that much firepower going around him, flying everywhere, and all that. It feels like that would have been the safer thing for him, the more secure option for him, rather than defaulting to his blaster. And I thought, well, maybe it's because he was worried about, Leia being there. But then no, he was fighting Leia right in front of her on two fronts, front and back, in some ways. So I don't know. Any thoughts as to why he would have? Is it just because he's still not 100% yet, and he had it in his hand and didn't really have time to think about it?
Well, I think I don't know if they had it in his hand. I mean, because I think the reason why he didn't have his lightsaber
in his hand is already. That's what I was saying.
Well, yeah, he pulled it. Yeah, I think the reason why he didn't have the lightsaber anyway, if he would have pulled it out while they were in a standoff, likely just pulling it out would have opened fire like execution, squad style, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that makes sense. But I think some of it, yeah, you still have to go a little bit of where's the reflex? Is it the reflex to reach for the lightsaber? Or is it to reach for the for the blaster? And I think while the lightsaber is becoming more of an extension of him again, I think it's still a habit to not reach for that as your first tool. And I tend to agree. It probably would have been a better weapon to deflect things, but at the same time, they were just kind of run and gun. But back in the day, they would have definitely done it with lightsabers and not blasters. So, yeah, I mean, fair enough on that one. But again, he had two weapons, and that's the one he chose. So, and again, I'm just going to draw it up to he's still not used to pulling that out as the first. Right. As the first thing. When he's in a hallway surrounded on both sides and he's basically on his own, or just he can manage where Leia's at too, that makes a lot more sense to have a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm. And he probably had Talos covering fire as well, or Talos right next to him as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. That's kind of how I interpreted it as well, but I think it's significant in that it just points out, like you said, it's not his first instinct. It's still not, even though he's come a long way, he's still got some room to grow there. Okay, so then let's spend the next 20 minutes talking about Wade and his death.
It was very traumatic.
It was. I don't know why I give Wade so much crap. I actually like Wade. I thought it was fun. He's kind of I don't know why
people thought that like Wade wasn't even mentioned before. I saw early on some people were like, who the hell is Wade? And why is everyone so upset?
Well, that's why I keep bringing him up.
I'm like, well, dude, he was there in the conference room and they said his name. I mean, he wasn't a critical character, but again, it just goes back to they're not used to losing people, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's a very traumatic thing, and they seem to have a very good relationship.
And I'm not being insensitive, and I'm not trying to make light of this death, but this character for some reason just tickles me, like the fact that he was named, he had a couple lines, and now there's all these people talking about Wade and how, like you said, I saw that too, where people are like, who the hell is this guy Wade? Yeah. I don't know. It just tickles me to death. So I'm going to be at the forefront of pushing the Wade memes and bringing them up at any time. So if you see the Wade dissection coming, just know that'll be around April 1st next year as part of our April Fool's joke.
Do what must be done.
Okay.
The people demand it, my friend.
Yeah. All right. So Reba blows up Wade. He goes down.
It was curious though. Fifth brother was like, destroy them, and she's like, all right.
I thought they were going to ignite the sabers and go fly like helicopter towards them or follow them in some way.
Because I'm telling you, man, does it seem less and less likely like that's going to happen?
I don't know. Rupert, like I said, Friend said that he gets a lightsaber and he gets to spin around or whatever. I mean, so he could have now been talking about having watched the episodes and I'm that character, and so therefore I can do that. But I didn't do it in the series. But I don't know, man. I'm still kind of banking on them doing it. I hope they do. I don't know when they're going to do this now, but we're running out of time. These are the things that are important, right?
That's right.
Helicopter lightsabers. Okay, so Dad comes in. He's pissed off, and this is Vader. He's walking down that tunnel. Man, that dude's got some determination on his mind.
Oh, he's got those are some 2-meter strides going right there.
Yep.
And he goes in and just yells at her. I mean, it was like the voice was distorted coming out. Yeah, it was great and just straight to the choke.
Mm-hmm. No, it was it was again, like I mentioned at the very beginning, just we love seeing Vader. We love hearing Vader, and having waited so long to kind of see this, especially after we've been given what we got in Rogue One. This is all candy for us. So I did love this scene a whole lot.
And again, Vader doesn't have a reason to keep his emotions in check anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing that's exciting, I think, for some people, and not everyone kind of gets that, but it's one of those, it's fun to see him act out when, for so long he was trying to keep it back and hold it back. And again, this all aligns much closer to the prequel trilogy than it does the original trilogy. And so we have to kind of bring that back to, well, how is Vader behaving versus what Anakin would not let himself behave as. And I think that's the fun part, is to be able to see him finally kind of Vader unleashed a bit, in that kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're going to see more of that. I think this is going to,
I think we're in store for some big temper tantrum, sure. Yeah.
Yep. Kylo Ren style temper tantrum.
Sure.
He says, you were warned what defeat would bring, meaning her death. And she's able to at least stop him by uttering that.
You saw Fifth Brother's expression, right?
No, I didn't see that.
He had it looked like a sneer at first, but you could tell it was a bit of a smile forming.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was just enjoying it way too much that she was finally getting what she deserved.
I have to go back and watch that. I haven't seen that yet. So, but yeah, and she says that she put a tracker on them that's going to lead them to the network and Kenobi.
Would you say that they're tied to the end of a string?
You want to talk about string theory and Reylo?
Oh, I thought you meant like string theory.
No,
like
no, there's
like Airwolf or something.
No, this is the red string theory of Reylo. Okay, no, it's a whole nother discussion.
No.
All right, so I know, but seriously, she says that she put a tracker on them and that she let them go. I don't know that I think she put the tracker on them as a contingency.
Yes.
But I think she had every intent of trying to stop them. She's
definitely lying still, right?
Yeah, right.
She's covering her own butt.
Okay, I'm with you there.
And what was interesting was the way that she phrased it was wherever he goes, it goes.
I did have that in the show notes. I think I did too.
Oh, do you? Yeah, but I mean, it
says, Vader says, you're certain the tracker is with him. And she doesn't answer that. I mean, she does, but she doesn't.
She gets around it, yeah.
Yeah, she gets around it by saying, where it goes, it will follow.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yep, and that's from a certain point of view. Now we can now we can actually apply that correctly, I think, or at least without any kind of hesitation. From a certain point of view, that is right, that Leia will be with Obi-Wan, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yep.
But again, we know that Leia's got to go home at some point.
And my response in the show notes says, so no. No, you're not certain the tracker is with them. That's basically where we're at the end of this.
And really, why not just go wait for him on Alderaan? That's where Leia's going to end up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just...
Well, these are the questions. These are the open... So that kind of brings us to the very end of the episode, except for, well, hold on. We have a big moment here. So they rendezvous with the frigate and they pick them up and we see Rogan on there and everybody,
very
sad moment there with the loss of Wade. Rest in peace, Wade. And now they are, pour one out for the homie here. But they're now talking about, the realization sets in that, again, they're now enlisted. This is now a war. They're a part of it. They're at least wanted. Maybe not a full war, but they're wanted, and so they're going to be fugitives. And what does this mean for them? Right. The whole point was they didn't want to get involved because they didn't want the Empire coming in.
They didn't want the attention.
Exactly.
They didn't want the attention, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want everything. They had a good thing going on Jabin. They had the secrecy was there. They were funneling people in and out, and now all of that's put in jeopardy because of they've gone in and did this attack. They did this little raid or whatever. So they struck first blood, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, again, they don't quite know what's coming after them either with this droid. But again, I think then we get to the really touching scene, right?
Well, yes. Hold on. What I was going to say.
I didn't know where else we were going to go with that one.
Well, no, all I was going to say is that this is yet another cell right, of what will eventually become the Rebel Alliance. To kind of bring back to the conversation earlier, this group is really focused on protecting Jedi and all that, saving them, right? And then you got people like Infus Nest that were oppressed and want to just take war to them. Then you've got the partisans in Saw Gerrera, and they're like the militant,
Militant side, yeah.
guerrilla warriors, guerrilla fighters that are almost they get to eventually they will
Bit
become
more
the
extreme.
extremists. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. They become the extremist terrorist group. But what you've got is they've got different pockets. What I like about this is that it does introduce yet another cell that eventually these all will coalesce and become the Rebel Alliance, right? It's an alliance of different facets of standing up and rising against the Galactic Empire. So I thought that was really cool that they acknowledge that, and then we see that, right? We see that this is going to be yet one more piece that's going to add into that.
But do you think this survives all the way to A New Hope, all the way up to the end of the Empire? Because it seems like at that point, and I know we're doing retrofitting here a bit, but
Sure.
It seems like maybe at some point this type of task ends.
Yes.
And they stop doing this for either they just aren't finding anybody else, or it's taking too many resources and they need to be directed elsewhere. So is there any, you have any conclusions there about whether or not this really does persist, or is it just really tiny in the future, or does it really just get absorbed into everything else?
Yeah, I think their efforts, they probably have like diminishing returns on their efforts, and I think eventually they do get absorbed into the larger, effort of the Rebel Alliance, and they may take additional roles like accounts payable. I don't know, but they go into other roles, right, at some point, and they do other things. But that's part of the alliance is now everybody. It's not just this one aspect. You've got to think more broadly about the effort, and it's only together that they're going to be able to stop them. So, and that bodes well for us seeing Tala later on in Andor or whatever other series. Which
I'm really on board with her showing up on Andor now.
Let's do it, man. I'll write to some folks here after the show and see what they can do.
All right, cool. Yeah, write a stern letter. A sincere letter.
Yeah. But the best moment, well, I said the lightsaber moment, but this was really, truly the best moment.
This was the most touching moment, yeah.
Yeah, with Leia, and I've seen some people talk about this, and I'm not, this scene probably means different things to different people, right? And what I mean by that is, if you've ever had a child grab your hand when you were down and you've been through something that's been, serious, right? A serious kind of event, or maybe not life-changing event, but life-threatening event, or just, you're shook in some way.
Right.
The fact that children have the ability to sense that and grab your hand or touch you or give you a hug, it says so much about the child itself and your relationship with the child, and you feel so much better about what you've done, that you've brought this person into the world, and that they're so compassionate. And I think that's what we see here. We see Leia's compassion. She has every right to be in fear. She has every right to be scared, thinking about herself, crying, self-pitying, whatever it is. And yet she's the one that grabs Obi-Wan's hand and pulls it over to him. And then together they hold hands. But you can see it on Obi-Wan's face, like he's surprised that she did that. And that's the part that I think is getting lost. I think people are like, oh, it's really cute, there's a sweet moment. But no, there's more there. It speaks to Leia's maturity. It speaks to her compassion that we all know that she has. And it speaks to her selflessness, right? If there's any one thing outside of being a rebel that we know about Leia, is just her compassion and her selflessness, right? She is a Jedi, even though she may not have the Jedi moniker and didn't complete training and all that. But she acts very much in this way because she gives her life and puts her life out there every single day for the galaxy. And it was just a great moment. And I love that she held on to the shot. It wasn't like a 2-second thing. She held on to it for, 10, 15 seconds. It went on for a pretty long time.
What I think is also that Leia finally opened herself up to that connection with Ben.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I think it was as much that as she was almost like a welcome home type of touch too, right? Of nice to finally see you, for who you are, and to finally allow both of them recognizing that opportunity, that there is a connection there, and that, this is a strong bond that's developing. And so, but yeah, I think it was very much on both sides. And again, it makes sense that it was Leia to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Obi-Wan has a lot of experience of a lot of emotional connection to people that didn't end with them dying. So, I mean, it's something that he's been so far removed from too, that, to have this, it's been very much part of his journey to come back to where he was. And we talked about, his relationship with Padme and some of the, how they weighed on that a bit the first few episodes. And again, I think that disconnection and that not having that trust in a person or in another individual, that jades you after a while. And so to have that kind of restored to you, one, you get kind of smacked around by your dad, but then to also have that more pure of heart way come to you and pull you out of it is really, I think that's really meaningful. I thought it was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, and I think in some ways, I think Obi-Wan now, Bail Organa is pleading to him like, you don't realize how important she is, and I think he does, especially at the very end now, right? She is something very special because she was able to do this, and that moment was needed by Obi-Wan as much as it was needed for her. Although she was the stronger one, I think they both needed that small little moment like that to say.
But on Jabim,
first
he comes out and says that she's very important to me.
Yeah,
and that was an eye opener that he is connected to her. He does feel attached to her in some way and feels responsible for her at the very least, and is beyond doing something for an old friend at this point.
All right, well, let's get into hour number 3, and let's talk about, I guess, the outstanding questions here. All right, so where are they going next? And I've got a couple of different options. I mean, the more obvious ones are Jabim. Do they go back to that planet? Do they go directly to Alderaan? Or do they go back to Tatooine? And I think there's value and reasons for all of them, but I can argue all of them as well. But where would you say? And if you're still with us, I know it's been a long episode, but if you're still with us and you want to chime in, I'd love to hear what you guys think as well. Where do you think they're going next?
I mean, the top two candidates have to be Jabim or Alderaan, right? For Obi-Wan to take her back to Tatooine, I think poses a bit too much of a risk. With Luke being there, but also he can't inadvertently bring anybody else back to Tatooine, because then they won't leave. The Inquisitors, if they go back to Tatooine, they won't leave. Because they'll be like, okay, they've smelled blood in the water. They've got one Jedi. They don't really know where Kenobi came from, but how, it might be more to it than that. And so if they get any kind of inkling that he's there, I think that would really screw things up. So I think Jabim and Alderaan are the clearer examples of it. Either Jabim to go back and stage it so they can get a ride, back to Alderaan themselves. I have a feeling that's probably where they're going, because I have a feeling we're going to have a conflict probably around Jabim that will out that base, and the Empire will come in and with some kind of force, and that's where we'll end up having it, rather than that type of event happening on an Alderaan.
I would say Jabim is probably the more likely one. So they have no reason to think the Empire is after them, right? They don't know. I mean, as far as they know, they got away, and so at this point, they can go wherever they want to. The only thing I was thinking is about Tatooine is that's where Bail met Obi-Wan Kenobi, and if he is thinking that, hey, I don't want this to be traced back to me. I mean, he shows up and he's in a cloak, and it seems like he was trying to be real secretive that he was even on the planet, right? For obvious reasons, because he doesn't want to associate himself with him. Now, hold that, because I know that's the one thing that we're going to talk about here is that association now, because I think it's implied now, all right? Heavily implied. But if they go back to Tatooine, then, that's a point where he can pick up Leia and they can get out of there, and it can look like they never, they don't have a direct ship coming to Alderaan to drop her off. I think that's more dangerous than going to Tatooine. Okay, but I still think it's going to be Jabim, and I think we're probably going to have, unless we got 2 episodes left, so we don't know how long those episodes are. So they could still have another confrontation planet, but at least with 2 episodes left, I would say the final confrontation that we've all been waiting for maybe does happen on Jabim. I don't know where. We didn't get to see a lot of the sets that were there. It looks like it's just, a desert planet of some sort. And
and they were kind of in this mountainous type of region, potentially kind of rocky outcroppings. Yeah, really no idea what the landscape there or the geography looks like.
So, but that would be my guess is Jabim. I don't know. What do you think about the Tatooine thing, though?
I didn't think about that. That's where Bail, but really the only reason why Bail came out there was to pull Obi-Wan out of his cave, pretty much literally. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like to me it would make more sense to have a rendezvous point, probably not Jabim.
Yeah, not
Although-
Jabim, not Alderaan, and not Tatooine. Honestly, right?
Right. It would be like, yeah, it would be like at the end of Revenge of the Sith, right? They met on a ship, and then they met on the asteroid, something like that. Neutral location, rendezvous point. That would make a lot of sense. Presumably, Bail knows about Jabim, though. So
yeah, I would have guessed. Yeah.
So he could go there, although I think that's a risk, especially at this point. But he may not realize that risk, although he's, him and Bray are very smart. So I would presume that they would take any kind of precautions to keep him away from anything that resembled an anti-Empire installation. So, yeah. So, I mean, Tatooine's on the table, I think. And it would definitely give you an opportunity for Reva and Owen to settle their score.
Yes. I was not even thinking about that, honestly. I was thinking...
I just gave you your in, man.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't even... That's like right in my face. I didn't even think about it. No, I was going from the more of the... That's where they met, so that's the rendezvous point, right? Even though there is some risk inherent there.
Now, I mean, and the symbolism of that conflict with Vader in the final confrontation happening on Tatooine is something, though, right? I mean, that's a really powerful location for a lot of that to come out, especially for it to be a place that Vader is defeated on. And that might be reason why Vader never comes back. I don't know, but again, I think it's just too much for any kind of climactic event to happen on Tatooine, because why would they end up leaving it then? And I think it would just be a little bit too much. So again, I think Jabim probably makes the most sense, because then you could have a bigger conflict there. Vader can be on the ground. It's not in a ship, nothing like that. And so I think all those things kind of add up there.
Well, he's going to come in surfing on his ship, right? That's what he does. So
hey, like the Silver Surfer.
Yep. Or like
Teen Wolf.
Twilight of the Apprentice.
Oh, I think I meant like Teen Wolf right on top of the van.
On top of the van. Yeah, something like that.
Everybody's got to serve.
So the burning question that I think everybody's been talking about now, especially
Vader? Vader's not on fire.
No, the burning question. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. No, so this is Bail Organa. He's kind of made a mess of this, right? Or he's in a mess. How about that?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, like even prior to this episode, I was thinking, okay, he's still got some, plausible deniability here, right? He can still hide behind, I'm a senator. I can still hide behind, the emperor's not wanting to meddle, or not, wanting to control the political affairs and not have to worry about these grunts and all that, right? But the reality is he now has Reva and potentially Vader, who's going to tell Reva. So there's a couple of ways that you can get out of this still, I think. But okay. So assuming Reva tells Vader, oh, by the way, they have Bail Organa's child. Oh, how did that happen? Well, I knew Bail Organa and Kenobi had a relationship, and so therefore I used him as the bait to smoke him out. That right there is like incriminating in a lot of ways. More that in itself is incriminating. So I don't know how he gets out of that. The way he would get out of that is Reva doesn't tell Vader. Although
she dies. Yeah.
Or the fifth brother. I mean, the fifth brother saw it too. So why wouldn't the fifth brother tell him? I don't know if they have that relationship, but other people were privy to seeing Leia. And
that's actually probably a better point, is why has the fifth brother not told Vader? But in their defense, Vader may not give him the opportunity though either.
Well, yes, that's another. That's again. I said there's a couple ways you can get out of this, and it could just be as simple as Vader just does not even care, because on some levels he's not really concerned with that. He's really more concerned about Kenobi, and okay. First, and I'll come back to that in a second. He's also really more concerned about the path potentially, right, for Project Harvester, for the fact of extinguishing the light of the Jedi completely. And really Leia and the Organas don't really have a direct tie there. I mean, yes, they're abating the Jedi who's helping them, but at the end of the day, what have they really done? Right? It's just guilty by association. So they don't really have anything to pin on them from that perspective. But here's the question I have for you.
Except, why would Obi-Wan be helping save his child?
Well, that's where my question is. What if Obi-Wan, or what if Bail Organa puts up the defense of, well, I just reached out to somebody and they hired someone else. Raja, I don't know, pick somebody, right? He can make up somebody and say, my child was abducted by your person, which you should have never done. and I needed my child back. And so I went and asked from help, and I've got no contact, no relationship with Kenobi. Yes, we had a relationship in the past, but that was through a third party, and someone else went out and found him, and it just so happened to be that guy. And it's not a strong argument, but
Yeah, I was about to say this isn't. You're not going to be on the stand convincing a jury of this.
Well, you're not going to convince Vader of it, I guess, is where I'm going. But
Right,
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
but does he have that? How much of a defense does he have just to say, look, I didn't know it could have been anybody. I reached out to tons of people. This wasn't the one person I reached out. I reached out to all kinds of bounty hunters. I reached out to my own forces, and
But that's the thing.
anybody that would listen.
But that's the thing. There's no evidence of any of that.
So?
And the first thing would have been, why didn't you go talk to the Senate? Why didn't you make this claim so that you could have? I mean, everybody would put resources into finding a senator's child, right? And so I think that's going to be the thing. There's no evidence that he did any of the above, and because he willfully didn't want to make any noise about it and do everything off the record. Now you could definitely argue that he would say, okay, well, I had my own people out there, and who they get involved, I have no idea about. But I think if Vader is involved, knowing, and he knows who Bail Organa is, he would likely. Well, I think the likelihood that Vader would question his motives seems pretty high. I think. Again, it's just there's not enough evidence that Bail Organa did anything, and he kept it so quiet. And again, there's an argument why you would not publicize this, right?
Mhm.
Because then you get every Tom, Dick, and Harry and bounty hunter out there, and you can't predict what they will do, right? And you can't trust bounty hunters. He's got his own force, so it was an internal matter. I guess you could argue that way, but
yeah. At
the same time, that you wouldn't tell anybody seems. And then you just kind of go about your day job. It seems a bit. It seemed a bit fishy, right? If they were questioning Tala, certainly they would start questioning Bail Organa over that, especially when someone like Obi-Wan Kenobi, who they used to know each other quite well, that just seems a little too convenient, for that to just be swept away on the rug, under the rug.
So I think the question. So maybe what it boils down to, we have lawyer friends that listen to this show. We should reach out to them. I think where this boils down to is
you're assuming the Empire operates like an actual court of law.
Yeah, no, they don't. I know.
Yeah, they don't have really due process or anything like that.
Nah. But for the sake of this, I think the question then boils down to: is aiding and abetting a Jedi? Because
it's treason.
Do they have that evidence? Do they have that as evidence? Yes. Right.
They don't. Well, do they need much evidence for it to be considered evidence?
But what's the crime?
Aiding and abetting an enemy of the Empire.
Did they, though?
Conspiracy. Well, it doesn't matter if they did or didn't.
This sounds like
it's more. You definitely sound like a separatist now. So
I was going to say, this sounds like A Few Good Men, where he's like, it doesn't matter what I think; it matters what I can prove, right?
Yeah, but again, it doesn't matter what you could prove, because the Empire, once you're guilty, you're guilty. You're guilty until proven innocent, right? Yeah. And even then, you still might suffer. So I just think there's when it comes to the Jedi in particular, in Rebel cells, I think in general, there appears to be effectively a zero tolerance policy in place.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're not above. I mean, like they were going to do with Tala, right? We will interrogate you. Presumably, that is the equivalent of potential torture, just to confirm that you're telling me the truth of your own people. So again, they're not operating under the same rules that you and I might enjoy as citizens here.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with. There's a question that I'm trying to ask, and I don't know how to phrase it, but I think it's around: is the crime of that? I don't know. I got to gather my thoughts on this. Maybe I'll post it on social media or something. But I'm just trying. Like I said, they've hired Kenobi somewhere. Kenobi helped rescue his daughter, but that's it. So is that greater than the risk of interfering with the Senate and the protection that's there and the plans that Palpatine has? I just don't know that Vader, the way I would work my way out of this, and you love it or hate it or whatever, the way I would work myself out of this, unless, again, we don't have the rest of the 2 episodes, right? So in this moment, the way I would work my way out of this is to say, yes, that sucks. However, that's really not what that's really, I mean, yes, we want Kenobi, but I mean, so what that he helped rescue your daughter? You had your daughter was taken by Reba, who should never have done that in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand it. I just don't know that anybody. I mean, let's ask the question here. So, does the Senate know about the Inquisitors? Do they know what they do?
I would say yes.
I don't know. Do they know
Everybody
what they do?
knows.
Is probably less so. And do
I
they
don't
turn
know.
a blind? Well, and it sounds like I mean, so well, let's go down that path though. So if the Senate does know, then they are basically allowing the Inquisitors to do this type of thing anyway, right? So they're sanctioned. They're state sanctioned, right? So they're permitted to do whatever it is that they do, include hunting down and killing Jedi, which is their primary responsibility.
Right, and they stepped over the line. They did not do that. They stole.
But they were doing it
daughter.
to hunt. But their argument would be, not that they have to argue, but they were doing it to hunt a Jedi. And this senator over here has known how to contact a Jedi this entire time and didn't say anything.
No, they have to prove that.
No, they don't. They don't have to prove anything. That's my point. They don't have to prove anything. Like in the court, Bail Organa would not stand trial. They would just be offed.
So they don't have to prove anything if you buy that the Empire is going to go in and can just wipe them out. And I'm saying that defense is predicated on the fact that they're not going to interfere with the Senate. They're not going to go attack the Senate. They're not going to go hold Bail Organa accountable for this because they've already established that they're under the. It's a senator's daughter and she's protected. And
but this, I think this is the case where this would go to the Emperor himself. This wouldn't go to the Senate. So this would be Vader reporting this to Palpatine at this case about what do we want to do with Organa? Because if he's been doing this, what else is he doing? And then that's kind of where the conversation goes. Does Palpatine see enough value in having Organa around and to keep an eye on, or is it something that he needs to snuff out because there's the inkling of rebellion at this point? I think it's going to be a kind of a risk-based assessment, right? Of whether or not he thinks that Bail is actually has the ability to do a lot of this stuff. And let's look at Organa. He's rules over Alderaan, has money, has resources, hides behind a kingdom of pacifism, basically, and preaches peace. And all of these things seem like, ripe for sympathizing for any kind of non-Empire thing. And they have to know that Bail Organa is not a fan of the Empire. I'm assuming. Again, I don't remember a lot of the politics of what he was doing specifically around this time, but we know that he's not a fan of it. But how much of that actually comes out in his day-to-day stuff?
And yet they're going to allow him to stick around for 8 to 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I don't think this information gets to Vader at all, because if it gets to Vader, then it gets to Palpatine.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's a long time for them to allow this to kind of fester. And so, yeah, I'm with you. Either that, or like you said, and where I was going when I said earlier about does he care enough? I think what you said it better. What I was struggling with is I think it's more about the calculated risk, right? Is the risk great enough that he would bring charges or wipe, him out or whatever it is, or does he see this as okay, well, now I'll just keep an eye on Bail Organa, start monitoring his, whatever, because he does have these contacts and maybe it does lead to something more. Does he try to use that to his advantage in some way? The honest truth is this is a very sticky situation for them. And again, we don't have the benefit of the next 2 episodes, but there are a lot of things that are very incriminating for Bail Organa. And I don't know that people are going to just be okay with them going, oh no, he's fine. And Leia goes back and it's a happy ending. And then everybody's washing their hands clean of all this. I think there's going to be an uprising.
Either they have to snuff out the message before it gets anywhere, or there has to be some sort of fallout. And it has to be, I mean, from a fan perspective, I mean, there has to be some sort of fallout for Bail Organa when clearly it doesn't quite appear that ever happens. And so what would that actually be that would be meaningful? And it wouldn't degrade and really cut off kind of this series, I think, more so than anything else at the knees. So that's why I just don't think it's going to be easier just to keep that information. Keep that information inside the box.
Yeah. Harold Joby's been on the defense of this. I don't know if you've seen some of the he's been responding to a lot of the feedback,
Mm-mm.
more around the Inquisitor than anything else, still. But he made a statement yesterday or today saying that they're well aware of some of the potential scene plot holes, breaking of canon. They're well aware of it. He said they spent a lot of time talking about this. They didn't just make this up,
Yeah.
and that everything will, they'll eventually get to it. And now there's rumors as of today, and credible on some levels, depending on, again, who you trust, saying that now they've gone back and altered the ending
Yeah.
to the series to allow for a season 2,
Or some sort of
extension of this in some way.
right.
I don't want to call it season 2, but yeah.
Yeah. And
So
that's why I was alluding to that last week, because this has been out there for a week or two now, that the initial response was so positive that do we really want to do some of the things that we're doing, and do we need to adjust that? And that's where it's difficult to see how they would go about doing that, because you would have to think that that would be more of a really hardcore edit. And we've seen what hardcore edits can do. I mean, they can fix some things, but they can also break some stuff.
yeah, and I think you pacify people by at least not explaining things, ending it too soon, but then saying, "Don't worry, more is coming." Right? They can't wait to announce this sequel, extension, whatever. 6 to 9 months, 12 months from now, everybody's gonna be pissed off from that time. It's just gonna be the Last Jedi all over again, right? Waiting for
Right.
the Rise of Skywalker to come out.
But I
But
think that the hunt for Kenobi, though, is always it's like, how long do you want to let that go on before you say, okay, now I don't have enough time for Tarkin to believe that Kenobi is dead, right? And that he could have outlived his life and things like that. So, I mean, then the longer this goes on, I think the more questions you start to even have for A New Hope of where we're actually picking up and what some of that dialogue means. And so, but I think you're right, though. I mean, these guys spend a ton of time talking about all of this, and they have a lot of people who know practically everything about Star Wars inside and out to vet a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
So they are not going to do something so obviously canon breaking and probably try to avoid a lot of any kind of ambiguity as well in most cases. And so I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, knowing that we've still got 2 episodes. We know we have a lot to get through here. And if there's a season 2 or something that is, again, more Kenobi later on, whatever that might be, I'm very curious how much further we can really go with all of this stuff.
Yeah. And just remember, and we've said this many times, although you may not like what happens, if it's a possibility, just accept it. I hate to say that. I hate to be so black and white about it, but you may
certainly
not
have your preference. Yeah, that's your prerogative. Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff that I didn't agree with in terms of how Star Wars went, but guess what? It is what happened, and we just accept it and move on and stay positive about it and keep talking about how much we love Star Wars. So again, it may not turn out the way it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go, but it just try to don't get too caught up in your expectations and own headcanon that this destroys you, because it's not worth it.
You know what it is crazy though, Albert, is how many people have stuck with us for 2.5 hours as we've gone through this episode, and we've tacked on a little bit of a bonus discussion here over the last 15, 20 minutes.
Well, and I think it was important to talk about this because I think it is a big issue that's going to start to kind of, there's already a lot of people talking about it, and we've still got I don't know how many days left before we get to the freaking 5th episode. So
yeah, I mean, we're less than 2 weeks, and it's not fast enough for people.
Yeah.
And I did read this online, and we all know that as a culture, especially Western culture, I guess now, we do have a bit of an attention deficit issue. Our attention span is, we want very, if not instant, we want very quick gratification. We want a lot of answers immediately.
TikTok.
And some of that's, what's that?
I said TikTok brain.
Well, yeah, and I think also is because we have a lot of information at our disposal and at our fingertips frequently. And so how quickly we're able to gather information ourselves is, we have a lot of power over that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at current events, they take so long to event. You can't just skip to the end, right? And it's the same with some of these shows. We just want all the answers right away. And good drama, good storytelling, and all of that keeps you engaged and keeps you wanting to know what happens. And I got to be honest with you, it creates these good debates that we just have to be respectful to each other as we go through it. These debates can be fun, and they can be like what you and I have. You and I aren't going to agree on everything. sometimes I think some of the things you come up with are just completely out in left field, but it doesn't mean it's not fun to do with you, right? And we both come into it saying, this is for fun. We enjoy this. We enjoy each other's company. And while we be on different sides of something, this is what we're here for. We're here to speculate. We're here to have fun. And so those types of things are really important to continue to do. And unfortunately, if you're just looking for answers, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait, for 4 weeks to get 5 episodes. And that's just the reality of it. Or you can go just search, Reddit for the Star Wars leaks and just live vicariously through leaks and not watch the content at all.
That's probably better for some people to do.
I don't know, man. That creates a lot of drama too.
Yeah, it does too. But no, you're right. I mean, this is what we used to do back in the day before the internet, right? And
we just did it around a coffee table.
Wait years for another movie to come out, or not at all, and make up our own stuff. And that's why I have some of these kind of whacked out, crazy theories. Because
they're super fun, man.
All right, well, let's get out of here because we're already at 2.5 hours. You got shout outs before we go?
Yeah, I sure do. Again, we do a live stream for everyone that's listening to the podcast. Tonight we had Jonathan, Steph, Ken, Kathy, Jorge, Lego Cat 3000, love that name, Abel Garcia, Christopher Gassler, Richard Williams, Eugene Bird, Lauren, and then Ryman 6000. I don't really know how to pronounce it. Yeah, Ryman 6000. So anyway, also, we had a lot of people watching as well. Go ahead.
We had Richard Williams and Abel Garcia as well. I don't know if you called them out, but
yes, I did. Yeah, they were on the Facebooks, hitting the like button. We certainly appreciate that. And again, everyone, we certainly appreciate all of the support for the show and for coming out and sticking with us for 2.5 hours of part 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi Breakdown.
Yep. 2.5 hours and only a 30-minute episode. That's what we get. That's what you get.
That's right.
Quality
These things don't really scale well. Yeah, but
no,
we'll figure it out eventually.
No, this is every time we say we're going to make it shorter, everybody goes, no, keep going, keep talking. So we'll continue to do it until the numbers start to drop. Okay.
Or until we pass out from exhaustion and heat under the lights.
Yes. Yeah. I've got, so I did record the unboxing of my High Republic book set that I picked up at Star Wars Celebration, the one that you see there behind Jonesy if you're watching the feed here. And I had a problem with the camera. It was a little shaky. And so I'm going to just redo it, but I'll take the shake. I'm going to redo it. you're not going to get the benefit of me opening the pages and seeing the reaction. So it's going to be more of a, hey, look what I got and you didn't kind of thing. Okay. So
what you can do though, what you can do is you record the video, but you dub over your audio. With all of your excitement.
You should have said that off the air. I would have done that. Oh no, it's the camera's too shaky.
Well, right. You just re-record the video and then you just use the audio you had.
Well, I can't open the shrink wrap's gone is what I was saying.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there's ways around that.
I guess I got to cut that too. Either way, I'm probably going to redo it and I'll share
it's still going to, regardless, it's still going to be worth it because this is an amazing box set.
Yeah, it's very cool. But I still have that. I still have the 3rd book of the Thrawn trilogy. That's still in a cardboard box. I've not even opened that. And a couple of things
my goodness.
I plan on doing. Yeah. It's still like this is a massive box. Look at the box it came in.
Wow, that's huge. Definitely protected though.
For one box, yeah, and I can just hear the foam in there. It's all encased in that. So
that's going to be an amazing.
That'll be fun to open up. Yep. All right. Anything else before we get out of here?
I hope that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming out to this show tonight, and we'll be back on Tuesday of next week. We've got a number of shows that we're still planning on doing. We'll start getting into some of the stuff that was shown at Star Wars Celebration and breaking that down very soon. So look for that.
And next week for the Kenobi Part 5, we're actually going to do it on Wednesday night. So you're going to get a much more raw reaction from us on the show. So Tuesday and Wednesday next week.
Oh man, we got back-to-back shows.
Yeah, okay, back-to-back, baby.
All right. Well, with that, we'll see you guys next week.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.